Hello, this is the first ever Melee podcast. I am joined by Italian Turtle. Hello, Turtle.
Hello.
I am joined by SpitFire. Hello,
Present.
SpitFire. And I am joined by the Meta Adam.
Who the fuck is that?
I have no idea.
It's you.
Hello.
So yeah, let's sort of go down the list of like your guys' history when it comes to group fighting and melee, or I guess just group fighting since this is going to be about group fighting. So yeah, we'll start with Turtle.
Yes. Since I've been the 45V the whole time, our first group fight was in like 2018 against 6-3, and we took a fat L. And then we did another one later against the 49th and took another fat L. And then we didn't do another one until like 2020. And I've been group fighting basically since then. Swapping all around different positions and that kind of thing. Learning as I go.
Cool. Spitfire.
Kind of the same deal with Italian Turtle. I think I did my first group fight in late 2018 with the TRR, and have only done group fights as a regiment with them since leading up into 2020, as well as some EU and NA HDL matches as well in 2020 and 2021. And I don't know, as for positioning, I've kind of always played flank, but recently I've moved more into a connector kind of role.
And Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an OG too. 2018, dominating the group fighting scene. Everybody
Yes.
knows.
I remember
I've never
you.
Lost. Yeah, I've never lost. I used to go
That's
by
true.
the name of Pepperoni. I'm kind of goated, but yeah. No, on a serious note, I've only been group fighting since like early or late 2020, like the start of RGL, I guess, for the 45E. So I did RGL, HDL, and EU HDL, and then now present. That is my life story.
Awesome. As for me, for the longest time, 2017, 2018, and for the better part of 2019 too, I've just been like a dueling purist. And because of that, I've managed to win 3 unrestricted tourneys.
He's insane.
But I think the first time I really started to dabble into group fighting was when the 2019 RGL was happening. And I was looking for a regiment to join just for the RGL. So then I was like, you know what? I think I can join the 7 Foos. So I joined the 7 Foos. That RGL wasn't very well run. I don't know if any of you guys remember. I think it was TRB run and not that good. But after that, I think I joined for the year after. I joined the 77th for their RGL, and that went okay-ish. We didn't do that well in the playoffs. And then just now, I've joined the NR39, and I'm helping them out with their group fighting adventures, which is pretty interesting.
Nice. Yeah, I heard stuff about that first RGL. Just I never participated or anything like that, but I heard just like, oh man, this shit's going not good. People were complaining about it and such.
And I think we have someone who has come back from eating dinner. Hello, Highlander.
Hello, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot that this was happening.
Yeah.
What a mad
I'm
lad.
so sorry. I'm sorry.
So we just started. We're just talking about kind of sort of like our history with group fighting and melee. So do you just want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I personally didn't really care for group fighting. Like I said in my kind of discussion with you, or like the interview thing, I never cared about group fights. I wasn't really wasn't big into it until I would say probably since we started trying to do the joint effort with the 7 Foos on doing the RGL. And when that backfired, I was like, well, there's people who are interested in our regiment that want to do melee. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue to kind of work with that. And pretty much ever since then, we've just been trying to build up on that, at least from the regiment side of things. But for me personally, probably the trying to remember, I think it was the HDL or something like that we did towards the end of last year, something like that. I don't know. I'm probably gonna get my dates wrong because I can't remember. But that kind of got me into more group fights to the point where I'm gonna like continuously train and to get better at it, and also help our regiment out with that. So that's pretty much how it all started, really, when it comes to group fights.
Awesome. So I want to talk a bit about like what makes someone a good group fighter. Um, like it can't be the best duelist, right? Because I've been the best duelist and I haven't had too much success in group fighting. So like you guys can just jump in. Like, what do you think makes for a good group fighter?
Probably the most versatile player, like a motherfucker that can just do anything, anywhere. If someone's really good at position, then that makes them best at that position, and possibly best at group fighting. It just depends on if they can rack up their kills or do it up in another way. But if someone's the best, then they can do it all around. And if someone can do it on the flank, probably they can do it in connector. Probably they can do it in mid. It's not too much different. It's just where the kills are at and where they can enter easy. It's just team to team kind of basis. But if someone's going to be the best, it's got to be versatility.
So not having tunnel vision.
Yeah,
Sounds like someone.
Spatial awareness is probably key, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone who can masterfully. I mean, things like dueling are really important too. Like, I don't think some random person who's not at least low high tier or mid high tier is gonna ever, or I'm sorry, mid plus maybe, even if they have insane brain macro ability, could maybe be considered one of the best group fighters. But it's usually going to be someone who's at least a high minus dueler or up, I would imagine, just because there are a lot of mechanics that go into it. Being able to block and stab effectively and at appropriate times, so you're not just dying for free. But most of group fighting, and why you see some people dominate group fighting that aren't necessarily the best duelists in the game, is being able to see the whole field as it develops, and know exactly where they need to be, when they need to be there, and why they're there, not just running around randomly in a group fight and stabbing people.
I would agree. Kind of what Turtle said earlier. They're not going to get stuck in that tunnel vision, whether they're on the flank, because I think a lot of people misinterpreted that as it's just dueling, when really that flank is still part of the group fight. You still are in that 3v3, and you still can't get that tunnel vision and just try and take that 1v1 and not go off to the side, which I'm sure we all know someone in this VC does that quite often.
Damn, bro. Way to call me out like that.
Yeah.
I definitely think with group fighting, spacing is a lot more important. And for the love of God, please don't S-key. You do need to be able to work with your team a lot
I feel
more.
personally attacked right now.
Oscar, this wasn't a group fighting session. This is just us saying that you're not good at group fighting. I'm sorry.
This is the roast session. I think just being able to work with your team and to apply dueling characteristics to a 3v3 and up is what will make a good group fighter. And if you can't adapt well, then even the best dueler should be at least an okay group fighter in most scenarios. But you're never going to be that top guy that you mentioned if you just get that tunnel vision and try to apply dueling straight to group fighting.
Yeah, and even yourself, Ostro, like right now, you're nowhere near, I would assume, and even in your own opinion, near your peak as far as dueling goes. And you still come to pickups and at your own NR39 group fights, you still do really well because you are a solid duelist and you do win those duels a lot of the time, which leads you to being able to just go and stab people in the back for free because you guys have a 1-up advantage as long as your whole team doesn't die in the 1v1, which is obviously why it's bad to be in a 1v1 because you're not really losing for your team, but you're also not being the carry. Group fighting, and it is that way in a lot of team games like Dota, League of Legends. It's like you can go even, but if you're going even every game, you're not climbing ranks or doing super well for your team. You want to be the guy that's going 30 and 10 or whatever because you got out of that 1v1 instead of stalling. You gave your team the +1 advantage for 2 or 3 seconds while that guy's chasing you, and you're stabbing people in the back. That's like that. Target switching and stabbing people in the back are the two most important things, in my opinion, in group fighting. And obviously, to be able to do stuff like that, you have to have the key skill of extreme situational awareness to know where everybody's at. And like I said, know where you're going, when you're, or I'm sorry, where you're going, when you're going, why you're going.
True.
True.
Yeah, so the best kills are the easiest ones. You don't want to like fight a guy for a minute while your entire team is fighting and just get one kill, right?
Exactly.
You want to get like
Yes.
3 quick backstabs within a few seconds. That'll help your team a lot more.
Yeah, and even if you aren't in that carry position, like usually carry positions are pushed at the flanks, or if it's like a specific team comp, maybe the connector, maybe even mid. It just depends. Like, but if you're not in that carry position, like say with us, like I'm not going to be playing on a flank because we have better people at the flank, right? But it is my job to fucking hold that mid, and if I see an opportunity, like pounce on it, and do my absolute fucking best to my ability to carry in that position, even if I'm not the quote unquote carrier of the team. I'm never going to be as fucking good as like Adam or Matt Bob or like Pilot in the fucking group fighting situations, but if I can do it up in my spot and do the best that I can in improving the team's like composition and just carry in that aspect, then it just is a boon for the whole fucking line.
Highlander, is there anything that you tell 4070 members to like look out for or pay
Yeah.
attention to?
Yeah, pretty much what we've already talked about. I try to go through that with my guys all the time, especially SpitFire. SpitFire has been really helping us out with getting our guys looking out for other things, making sure that you're working with your teammates that are, that's around you, and yeah, don't S key.
Always.
Yeah, and that just same thing. Just I always tell them, target switch, especially even during events, because all charges is a really good way to practice group fighting in a way. So I try to tell them during the all charges, hey, make sure you're with somebody and try to do an up down and target switch and all that
It's
stuff.
the big group fight.
The big group fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I want to just do a quick shout out to Power because when it comes to spatial awareness, like I'll be on the edge, like nowhere near Power, and then when it's like the next round, he'll like be messaging me about what I did right and what I did wrong, and I'm like, you aren't even watching me, like, like what?
He's wait, like he's in the group fight and he's coaching you, like what?
Yeah,
mid
like
pickups or
he
something?
knows what
That is
everyone
awesome.
is doing at all times, and I have no idea how.
Sheesh. That man's got his tilde key on lockdown. He's
Dude,
just
he really
he's
does.
just one v. He's smoking
Tilde
someone
key
in a
melee.
1v1. Yeah, he's smoking someone in a 1v1 and just watching other people like, this guy's a mid tier. I can look at my teammates really
Yeah,
quick.
what
Hold
the
on.
fuck, bro?
Cool. So I posted a link in the chat box. I actually created this today with a little bit of help from Elf. Is it working for you guys, the link?
yeah, I could see
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
So I do want to talk about the positions a little bit. I think we'll start with the middle and then just sort of like go out from there. So the middle is pretty much like the dreaded position, apart from a few psychopaths who like to be mid, I guess. So like, what do you guys think of the middle position? Why do you guys think people despise it, and how important is the mid to a group fight?
I mean, I just think people don't like it because they don't get the kills that they want. And like I said before, depending on team comp, like if you're fucking TR and RGL, like, you're pushing that mid and they're getting the frags. But in most general group fights, like people don't like it because they're not getting kills or it's boring or, they're the people around them. Mid is generally where people put the less in-depth players. So it's fucking, oh my God, my teammate next to me, he's getting, target swapped and he's not seeing it coming. So he's not blocking. And then it's breaking our mid, that kind of thing. People don't like being in the weak spots of a line because then that means that, they're in a compromised position.
I would agree. That's what TR used to do, to shove kind of like almost the bottom half of the team in the mid. But in reality, the mid's probably the most important of the three or five positions, however you want to define it. If you lose a flank, you can still recover, but if you lose the mid, then you're in two separate groups, and regrouping is then made almost impossible.
Yes.
I think the best example is, as Turtle pointed out, is the TR goes for the opposite, which has a much stronger mid, which gets significantly more kills than our outer flanks do. And that's really because our flanks just play passive and our mid does most of the work, and clearly it works. So I think a balanced to more stacked mid will favor a better team more than trying to stack your flanks and just having the mid die early on and hoping the flanks can recover it. Now, of course, not every team has players that can play mid, and then they have to go with that weaker mid. And at that point, you just have to hope that your flanks can uh, kind of, I guess, can flank the enemy when they're separate 2v2s, 3v3s, and move into the mid to try and save them before it's too late.
Adam, any thoughts on mid?
I mean, I for the most part agree with every opinion. I mean, the main reason I don't like going mid is because there's generally amongst the line there's 2 to 3 man spacing, but it seems that no matter what you do for mid and in pickups for in the 45E group fights I've been in, pretty much anywhere, somehow we all end up being motherfucking
We're holding
almost damn
hands,
near
bro.
shoulder to shoulder. Yeah, like
holding
we're
hands,
about
bro.
we're about to
We
fucking
like each other a
volley
little bit too
fire on
much.
some line that's 50 meters away. And yeah, I don't know. I don't like it. I'm certainly not used to it, but as it's definitely can be effective, as demonstrated by the TRR, and maybe some other group. I don't know, but obviously most notably by the TRR. And I mean, otherwise, like SpitFire said, usually, and this is how most regiments do it. They'll put their weaker players in the mid and just kind of let the flanks go to work. But and the reason for that is because fucking hold on, I'm getting so many pings right now. It's distracting me.
No problem.
There we go. I lost my train of thought.
It's gone forever.
It's gone forever.
Dude, I literally just had such a big brain fart. Holy fuck.
So good. We were talking about mid holding hands, and then people stacking the flanks, and then
Yeah, fuck the mid. I don't want to
mid
play
holding
there.
hands more.
That's my. I was just fucking filled with rage thinking about playing mid with all those fucking idiots.
Yeah. Wait.
Tittle. Oh no.
No, I don't think I've actually ever played mid for the 45E. Only in like pickups or random stuff.
Yeah.
We'll have to try it one day.
Adam mid. You can hold my hand, bro.
I just know that's where I like to
Gotta
be
make
whenever
notes,
they
Turtle.
put me in the connector position. Just put me in connector and I'll go kill everybody who's in mid.
It's true.
When I play mid, I think I was like the designated mid for like I think the 7th Foos and the 77th, but like I just found it too restricting. I'm someone that likes moving and using my footwork. And when I'm mid, like I'm told not to S key, and I'm told, and there's people like beside me on either side, and there's like a huge
Yeah.
pike wall of bayonets right in front of me. So like I kind of feel locked in, and I guess I'm a target switch magnet, so I die pretty quickly as well.
They smell it on you. They're like, this guy, he's going
This
down.
guy.
But it's like a recruit that target switches, like a player with 3,600 hours, like can kill them, right? So I think that's why it's more like it's more accepting of players of lower skill levels to go mid and just be told to target switch all the time because it works, right?
Yeah, I think mid generally gets condensed too more because it's like if that guy, it gives, if you guys are closer together, then it gives less opportunity to, get target swapped because oh my god, there's a guy right next to him that can stab me if I fuck this target swap up, or he could just lunge at me and then I have to try and block and then I'm out of position. I think that's why it naturally condenses more because people are playing more defensive. And so they're trying to like cover for each other. And it's if you're 3-man spacing in mid, you can't cover for the guy on your left and the right at the same time. It's impossible. And once one of those guys goes down and you're mid, the line's split immediately. There's nothing you can do about it to recover unless you instantly kill that guy. I think that's why generally like people are crunched into the mid more, like Adam was complaining about. And fucking yeah. But it's I think generally cover for people more. Way more defensive ability. Because I know I wouldn't be able to fucking lunge to my left and right in time, especially an off angle.
A very elite level mid player that's sadly retired now is Sin. I'm not actually sure what made him good. I think it might have just been his blocking ability, but he was one of the more passive mids that somehow was still elite. I'm not sure on the specifics of what he exactly did to be so good, but it got him the number one pick in the HDL. So I don't know if you guys know anything more about Sin, but yeah, he was an excellent mid player.
Yeah, all I know is Mans was nuts at blocking
Yeah, pretty
and shit
much.
like that. So I never
Yeah.
really interacted with him too much.
I mean, I was on his team for a short bit when I was on Dad's team. He's very, I mean, it's like you said, he plays very passive, and I never, like, I would never look mid and be like, wow, that guy's just doing like some crazy shit. But then, like, I would be doing really well on the flanker connector, and then what do you fucking know? Sin's right next to me on the leaderboard. Like, what the fuck is he doing over there? Like, he's just, I don't know, he's just taking him the free kills as he gets them, and like you said, he's sick at blocking, so he doesn't die unnecessarily ever. Like, if mid falls, it's probably not because of Sin.
Highlander, Highlander, do you play mid or what?
So for Cerberus, this team for the HTL, I was a mid player. I was for that team, like I was all right. I wasn't terrible at it, but after that got disbanded and I had to move to a different team, I tried to keep playing mid, and it just didn't really work out. So I either played connector or pretty much like on the far end, and I played a little bit better. I mean, I would say like the kill, like the KD ratio is probably about the same, but because I mean, again, I'm not that great at group fighting. I would say I'm probably like mid, maybe mid plus on group fighting, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could play mid. I mean, technically, I could play all positions and be like all right, but at least for the 4070, I'd probably have to play mid because a lot of our guys, I would say, are a little bit better when it comes to like the connector and the flanks rather than just trying to hold the middle or maybe even try to play passive on that. So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to keep doing it if I needed to for anything.
Do you find that like restrictive to your playstyle at all? Like being
Yeah,
forced to be
honestly,
mid?
no, it really does. I like what Oscar said earlier. I love to move around and be able to like target switch people like on the ends and just trying to go around. I love flanking people. I mean, my main or back in the day, my style even for like dueling was I try to get behind people
Yeah.
and I would just try to spin around and stab you in the back. So yeah, center doesn't fit my play style and it is very restricting. But if I need to, I will.
Yeah, if there's no motherfucker to do it, you're the motherfucker.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool. I think we kind of covered mid. It's a very important position that needs to be played, but not many people want to play it.
Probably the most important. If mid falls, you just lose.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if it's like the saying is like not many people want to play it because I mean, in the TR standpoint, like we do, you know, we have like probably 4 or 5 different group fighting teams, and like
You're fucking what the fuck, bro? 4 or 5?
well, no, we have-
Highlander sitting here like,
Just trying to make one, dude.
no, so we have the Gordon, then we have Belfast,
I can't check.
then we have Dublin Scots, then we have A team, B team, and then
Gotcha.
EU if you count that, but that's like
Oh, damn.
8 or 9 guys. But like depending on the group fight, like a lot of the guys in Belfast, like K-pop and Kaiko, they'll normally play outer edge in an A team fight or an EU fight, but a lot of people would rather play in the mid, or at least try the mid. So it's like for us, it's not really that many people want to get out of the mid. If anything, it's kind of the opposite. People want to test out the mid.
Yeah, I think it's because of your guys' playstyle.
Yeah, then there's guys like Equal and Honor who play mid 100% of the time and would obviously rather go to the flank. So I think it's just like, you know, you want to play something different to change a pace.
cool. Now, do you guys see like mid as something you graduate from?
I don't think so. I think it's like positions aren't really something you graduate from. You're just morphed into that. And if you can play multiple, cool. But it's like in fucking any kind of like MOBA, you play that one role to get really good at it, so that you can fucking, you know, be the GOAT in that one spot for at least for your team. if you're moving around too much, then it can kind of mess with comp a little bit too much. Unless you're just like you have a fucking very morphable team into whatever you can fucking conjure up. But if you usually play a spot and you play it for long enough, you kind of don't want to move into other spots. Like, yeah, I enjoy playing connector and flank from time to time, and like I can do it. But at the same time, it's like I prefer mid just because I know I can, especially when I'm IGLing, I can just see everything from just a glance instead of having to, if I'm right flank, I look over across the field and I can't see what left flank's doing because, it's way too far, especially if it's a bigger line. So it's something that you just morph your playstyle to in a group fight. And it's probably easier from mid to go to other places than to go to other places to mid, I'd say. Because, you're out of mid, you're just released from your containment and you still have your skill. But if you're fucking a flank and then you're used to just going around doing whatever the fuck you want to then, I'm boxed in, then you're kind of out of luck. Because that's just how it is.
I would agree. It's important having kind of the person that's going to make those major callouts in the mid. TR person doesn't really use IGLs anymore. We just pick whoever's in the direct mid, whether that's Honor, Ecall, or at times it'll be like Perk and K-pop who are more soft-spoken, and really the only call is up and then hold. Everything else will be orchestrated before the round, whether we're fucking deciding to ice for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Or
You
just
motherfucker
SG.
pep talks. Yeah. I think that's
So we don't
generally most groups do, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There isn't really the need for a function for an IGL in the mid for us anymore. However, if there ever was, it would come from the mid just because they have better eyes than anyone else, except for the people that are like, sitting in free roam.
I think it is the most useful, and generally I use it a lot for timed pushes. Not of like, okay, 3, 2, 1, go on that. Like if I see a flank buckling or a connector buckling through, that's when I'll just call like, okay, mid go now, because it's just applying the extra pressure and I can see that happening. And like, it's just okay, connectors breaking through, now your entire mid's being pushed. That one person can't deal with that pressure, and then it just cascades.
I think that was something that was actually happening, like, at the EU group fight is where they did that, the QR strat where, they had both the flanks S-key back, but, as the two flanks were both S-keying and retreating, instead of pushing the mid to try and, even the playing field or buy time, their mid was also pulling back as well.
Yeah.
So if both the flanks are going down, then really the only way to counter would be to send the mid in.
Yeah.
And if the mid loses, then you've lost all positions, round's over, you got to restart. But if the mid wins, then you're now in open melee, and it's a 50-50 fight up in the air.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a very popular position. This position might actually be more popular than the flank, and that is the connector. Now, whenever I've played connector, I always seem to get target switch and just die immediately. So I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something that you guys aren't, but it seems like connectors are usually the top fraggers of the most skilled players on the team and like the top fraggers. So yeah, let's talk about connectors. How important are they, and do you enjoy playing them?
I mostly play connector now. Obviously, depending on the lineup, at times I'll go 2-man, at times I'll go like 6 in the mid. But I would define, connector around the 3 to 4 spot in like a 12-man setup. I definitely get what you mean with the target switching. I do think half of like being connector is simply just constant target switch. Is whether you're moving into the flank to help out there, or if you're moving into the mid. I would say the TR is best group fighting in terms of fragging out would definitely be our. If it's not our mid, like guys like Equal, then it will be our connector with Dank primarily. It's just constant target switching, and very rarely will our connectors go on the straight man. Obviously, that's not the only way they are utilized, but I think I like the description that Elf put on the graphic you made. And they kind of put the parts of the line, i.e. those being the flank and the mid, together, and if the connector goes down, then those enemies can get behind, and more often than not, they'll move into the center, and again, once the center breaks, then it's very hard to win it. I would say it's probably, in terms of the single position, it's more important than the mid, but the mid as a whole is more important.
Yeah, and I mean the connector also, like you said, it's not always the most I guess, skilled individual on the team, but it certainly allows for the most skill expression. And like someone who has really good situational awareness and they want to show it off, you put them on connector. Like if they're able to properly see where the weak points in a line are, like if you're in the 4 position, you can either control the fight and go mid and win that way if that's where you guys are having a hard time, or if you're winning so hard that you just want to keep that train rolling, or if maybe it would be better to like maybe you're the 3 or the 4 on the left side, your 3 or your flank, your 1 through 3 on that side is really strong. You might want to help them win the flank really quickly and then take all your strongest meleeers into the fight rather than helping maybe some not as good meleeers win and potentially them still lose because your good meleeers died really early. So there's definitely a lot of skill expression and awareness that goes into playing connector, or at least there can be. It's definitely probably easier as far as a skill floor than probably both mid and flank. But I think as far as potential kill output, I think connector is where you would want to be. Obviously, like if you're on a flank, you're usually facing the best people in the game, and staying alive can be a little bit more difficult, which is why you won't get as many kills. But if you are getting kills, you're going to be in the connector. I think you have the highest chance of doing so there.
I agree.
Highlander, have you played connector at all?
I tried that position a couple times under Voss team for the HDL. I like it, but yeah, you will get targets switched a lot and really quickly, and I was kind of new. I was still kind of new at it, so I kind of fucked up and died a lot with that. Um, but if the particular round, if I can block and actually like get a couple kills, then it would kind of equal out my deaths, and I would play a little bit better. But I haven't played enough connector and to say like 100% that like I like it. So I mean, it's just gonna have to be kind of like a wait and see.
So how does one get better at the connector slot? Because it seems like if you get up down right away, there's not much you can do about that, right? So that might just frustrate someone, and then they might just do something else. So what tips would you guys give someone who wants to play connector?
I'd probably give them like communicate with your people around you more, because the best way you get in is by fucking people getting overwhelmed by pressure, and then you get a free target swap. Because like you said, oh my god, I'm getting target swapped a bunch, and that's not just one person doing that work. Sometimes it might be because they're fucking insane, but most of the time it's like you're getting pressure exerted on you from multiple people, and then you just don't expect it. It's a big communication thing for connector to be able to do what they do. And like Adam said, it's the biggest. I like way more than the flank. The skill expression of connector is like the biggest thing. So obviously you need to have your basics down of blocking and being ready to fucking tank those target swaps and get in there and do the work.
Cool. So next we'll go to the final position, that will be flank or the edge or the outside. This is a position that I've personally taken a liking to. Now, I've been trying very hard to stop engaging in 1v1s in the corner of the map, as alluring as they might be. So I think Alf really said it perfectly. The point of the flank is to sort of break the enemy position, try to get behind them, and just turn like the enemy's backside towards your team, right? So they can get easy kills. That is what a flank is supposed to do. So yeah, is it best for the flank to be the best player on the team, or can you get away with someone like who's not so skilled, like someone like Porky, who did pocket me a few times? And for those who don't know what pocket means, it means that you draw their best player into a 1v1, just so just kind of stop their momentum, stop them from killing a bunch of people. So yeah, do you guys see the flank as something that elite players only should be in the slot of, or someone like Porky who might not be so good, but that kind of draw the best player into a 1v1?
Yeah, I think that's definitely situational. Like if I know like, hey, their flank is they want to kill that person in front of them and then move on, especially like spacing wise, then I will probably deploy someone to pocket them that's good enough to block like, a plethora of different moves without just fucking dying instantly. Because if I can just, if I can put Porky there and then have Chug go somewhere else, I'd much rather have Chug be useful instead of him being pocketed and fucking wasting that time and Porky's skills being not as good as Chug kind of thing. Generally, though, how it does match up is like the best people on the flanks because people might like depth or like they don't have that one person to pocket or and they might not be a dueler kind of guy and they'll just go away from that one into the two and then so on and so forth. So yeah, I think generally if the comp matches up, it's better to play your better players elsewhere so that they don't get pocketed and don't get stalled out so they can do what they do as the best player. But generally, people are lined up as the most elite on each team because they don't want to die. You don't want your flank breaking.
Well, it happens to be a lot of times too that a lot of teams, the best melee teams now, like the top 3 or 4, like they usually have enough depth to be able to match a flank or sometimes even 2 flanks. But like an experienced flank player, if they know that who they're facing, even if it's just one guy, there could be one guy on the flank, and if someone who's really good at playing flank sees that, they're gonna notice just by the way you're moving around. You look like a dumbass to them. Like you literally just look like chopped liver, like a tasty meal or some shit, and they're just gonna target swap you every single round, and then it's a 3v2 on the flank. And if the skill expression is mostly even on the flank, that flank's gonna win every single time.
Yeah.
For teams like the TRR, they don't really run into that problem as often because both of their flanks are pretty competent meleeers. Some are some of the best melee 1v1 meleeers in the game, so they can hold their own, which allows them to move their people that are really good at catching those free kills and getting those frags, and they can put them in other places. So I would say it's usually pretty situational because you don't want to put your top fragging players somewhere to get frags if the other side is just going to get so overwhelmed that it doesn't matter how many kills you get. Sometimes you kind of have to take the L as one of the better players on the team and hold the flank and hope that your mediocre players do slightly better than the other team's mediocre players. But obviously, all that's situational. There's so many different ways that you can go about outplaying someone lineup wise and moving your good players around. But that's the gist, I suppose.
I would agree. I think definitely dueling may have more of a major effect on the flanks. Obviously, that is an excuse not to regroup and not to esky, which is an issue a lot with flanks, especially with certain TR members. But I do think if a player is adequate enough to be able to not necessarily win their flank, but hold it off long enough, then that team has a significant advantage with the others since they can move, their fraggers into the mid and connector positions. Teams that struggle with depth, they're forced to keep the better players on the flank just to counter their own better players, and it's that bottom half that's going to win the group fight, not the top half.
Mm-hmm.
I think a prime example would be like the 45E, and I think everyone admits that I'm not dissing here, but the 45E and like a 10v10 versus the TR would be a pretty good fight. The second we go up to 12 and beyond, it's just going to be the top.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
The top guys have to win their fights almost immediately because the bottom half is going to just start to drown. So obviously teams with depth may favor, teams with depth like TR and 63 may favor from more I don't know what I'm trying to get here. I just think that flank having good players on flanks depends on the depth the regiment offers. Huh? I always want to call you bad. Turtle, the non-NWL moderator.
Yeah. Oh.
No, but I think you said that damn near perfectly. As soon as you add 2 people that are just significantly better in dueling and group fighting than the 2 guys that we would potentially be adding in, like you said, the guys like if I'm across from Paprika or something, regardless of who you think is a better group fighter, I can't just run at Paprika and kill him instantly, no matter how good or bad I am, no matter how good or bad he is. We're both good enough to where neither one of us is just going to die instantly unless we severely outplay the other person. And situations like that don't happen often enough. So depth is like you said, it matters that much. You add 1 or 2 guys that are dying somewhere else way faster than everybody else on the field. That team that added those 2 players that are better is just going to even if it's slow, it's just like you're just gonna see the kill feed and see everybody on your team is slowly dying until your flank, and then you suffer the same fate.
Highlander, I'm guessing you like flank the most.
Yeah, it gives me enough, I guess, movement to try to get around and get behind people and to stab them. I still kind of need to work with just have better teamwork and communication, because sometimes what I do is when I'm looking at the person in front of me, I try to like stab him and I try to get around him, but he'll just immediately target switch to the person to my right. So I definitely need to be a little bit better on that. But yeah, it's probably, I would say that position's probably like the best, at least from my dueling experience. Because I know dueling and group fighting is two different things, but a lot of my, I'll say if all my skills are coming into dueling, and if I'm coming into a group fight, I need to be able to kind of figure out which position would be best. So flank's probably going to be like the best one for me. But from the 47E side of things, if I'm doing, like, if I'm making or if I have a comp team for us, I'm probably not going to be able to play flank just because we have a lot of good blockers, but I think that having one like myself or Peep maybe could probably hold the middle. If not, we can do it together. But because there might be one or two people that I know that can probably play flank pretty well or connector. But and that's I'm an adaptable player. There's not like one position I can play. I mean, I probably would play center best, but I can play all of them to a certain degree, and that's why that's just kind of what I like doing. I like being very adaptable. I like playing every position I can. So I may not always be playing flank, but I would say center and flank are probably like my best in a group fight.
Yeah, I mean, plus if you're like, especially again if you're like IGLing in some aspect or like critiquing play in a kind of thing, like, and you have experience in all those kind of different positions, you can like critique properly instead of not knowing what you're talking about and just saying like, yeah, connected, you should have done this instead of that, and then just be fucking wrong and giving that bad info to the people because you have experience, you know what to do there.
Yes,
and fucking just works out better for a team comp.
Yeah, and that's why I've been getting SpitFire to help out as well, because I'm not well versed into group fights, and having SpitFire there to help us kind of build some momentum and some strength definitely helps.
Yeah, believe me, bro. Trial by fire and group fighting and
Exactly.
learning that shit on your own. Like, one, you're getting the shit kicked out of you because you're trialing by fire. And then on top of that, you're trying to absorb something from the match in which you're getting shit on. Absolutely. So it's fucking definitely helpful to have a helping hand.
Yes, it does.
One thing I've learned about flank is that you cannot be a passive flank. Like that, those are two things that do not mesh together at all. And I think that's why whenever I told people that I'm a flank player, that they just kind of laughed at me because I'm known as a dueler who like S keys and it's very defensive, and that's sort of like the opposite thing you want to be. But only recently have I sort of been teaching myself to be more of a range threat and to sort of use my footwork to kind of wrap around people. But during I think it was the NA versus EU, I was doing the wrapping around part, but I wasn't doing the range threat part. So I was like wrapping around people, but I was being very block spammy, and I was just letting my connector, be it Adam or be it Paprika, just get killed. And I think Paprika got so frustrated that he actually ended up switching. He switched spots.
Get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah. So, like, I definitely understand the whole trial by fire thing. Like, you need to know like what you're doing wrong, but then you also need to accept that I need to get better at this. I need to change the way I'm doing things. And even after 3,600 hours of melee, like I'm like, you know what? No, I gotta change some stuff up.
Yeah, but that's like the fun thing about group fighting. It's like, even though it's been going on for a little bit now, it's still like fresh, and I think metas can still develop in it, and playstyles can still develop specifically with group fighting, as opposed to like dueling when there's not a fucking forceful melee update to change something up. Then shit's just stays still until some random kid comes out of the woodwork and's a fucking baller.
So yeah, I think we got a good understanding of the positions. So I want to talk about tactics a little bit. Um, so yeah, what do you guys think about tactics? I know that sometimes you want to like premeditate something before like you guys even clash, and sometimes you want to just go with the flow, so to speak.
Yeah.
So what like is it different for each team, each group, or like what is the best way to approach having tactics?
It starts with this just the general lineup of like where you put people is what you want to happen. If you put fucking your 5 best on one side, you stacking that fucking side, and you want that side to win. So you're automatically like setting that side to succeed in some kind of way, and you're basing your strategies from that point onto that. And if you adjust it, then you're just adjusting your tactics after the fact. But it all starts with the lineup.
Cool. Anyone want to speak on tactics at all, and what's the best way to go about things, and from like an organization standpoint, I guess?
I think that's very, case by case,
Yeah.
subjective. It's no really one tactic that will rule the others. Almost to the point that I don't even think there's like consideration to have one good tactic that wins it. I mean, like
Yeah.
in my opinion, I do think having a stronger mid is better if that classifies as a tactic. Um, if hell, I mean, the TR tactics is like engage 8. Just send everyone that's in the mid just full aggression
Mhm.
and worry about the flanks later. But again, that's for some that might work, others it might not.
Yeah, it just depends on the pieces that you have. And like
Yeah.
tactics usually aren't like a set thing either in group fights. It's like I said before, your lineup is your main fucking game plan. But if shit's not working out, you change it on the fly constantly. If one player you see is constantly getting target swapped, you move him somewhere else so that that doesn't happen anymore, and so that you can aggress and do stuff properly without weak links breaking the chain.
I want to talk a bit about like premeditated tactics compared to sort of tactics you sort of just make up on the fly. So for example, say that you're still like or say like you're approaching the enemy, and then your IGL just says, okay, right is gonna kite and left is gonna push. Like even when nothing has happened yet, like do you guys think that's okay, or do you guys think that so like the fight needs to begin before you start making decisions up?
For opening gameplay, it's okay to have a starting plan like that, but as soon as you recognize a pattern or weakness in the opposing team, it's all situational from that point. You can't keep doing a set game plan, because then if it's not working, then you're just going to keep losing. You have to just adapt to it. Like it's okay for the first couple of rounds so you can feel it out and call stuff out and just observe, but after a certain point you have to just adjust, because if it's winning, cool, then it's just winning. But the other team's going to be switching up too, and eventually they're going to get some rounds on you, and you have to keep adjusting to make sure that you have the edge on whatever kind of game plan you're doing. Like if it's overall, it's good to have it at the start, but if it's you keep going and it's not working, then you have to change something up, or else you're just inevitably going to lose.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with Turtle, because it's like, I mean, like, I don't think you should ever go into the beginning of a group fight and say, "Hey, we're gonna push right flank and kite left flank." I think it's kind of like dual pacing, right? You're not doing anything crazy at first. You're kind of feeling it out, seeing what this guy does. Oh, this guy, last time we had the situation, he spun 3 times, did a feint, and then did a crouch stab. I could easily gamble that. And in group fighting, it's like, okay, the last 3 rounds in a row, they shit on us by pushing the left flank, our left flank, and kiting their right, or our right flank, their left flank.
Mm-hmm.
So this round, we're going to do the reverse, and we're going to kite our left flank so they don't shit on us, and let our right flank push. And hopefully our right flank gets there first, Like, as far as premeditated strategies, I wouldn't say, at least in the 45E, like, it's never just random. We're not just like, hey, you know what? We're kind of feeling like a middle push. We're just going to kick some guy. We're going to kick Matt Bob through the line. Well, now with someone like Matt Bob, it could work. Usually it's like there's a pattern. These guys have been doing this thing for a couple rounds. We're going to do this strategy that we're pretty sure is going to counter it. And if it doesn't work, we try something else, or we
Mhm.
just lose gracefully. But hopefully, we're trying something else and trying to win the whole time.
Cool. Do we have anything else to add on just general tactics and group fighting? I think we are good. Um, so let's talk about in-game leaders a bit. Um, so how many in-game leaders do you guys or IGLs do you guys think a team actually needs? Because I know some teams have like a left flank leader, a right flank leader, a mid leader, and they're all kind of like in their local zones and deciding like what's the best to do with callouts and stuff. And then some teams just have one IGL who is just like the only voice and just like the commander of everything. So, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, like 45E has multiple just so we have eyes everywhere, so that we can see if problems are happening, or if certain stuff is gonna win, then someone will call it out,
User was moved to your
and then
channel.
call certain pushes and blah blah blah, that kind of thing.
User was moved to your channel.
Hello.
We have Hooked and Kappa from the TRRB joining. Hello.
Yo, what's
Hello,
up?
hello.
The
EU group fighting
EUs.
perspective, Pog.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about IGLs and game leaders and how many a team actually needs. Do they need like a right leader, a left leader, a mid leader, or do they just need like one?
I think it varies between regiments or like whose team you're group fighting with. I think in the TRB we usually just run with one IGL, but we make sure that each at each point of the line there's someone giving shot calls. So someone giving the calls on the right, someone giving calls on the left, and obviously people giving calls in the center. And we run with that. But there's always only one guy who's actually giving the tactics for the round.
Yeah, I'd say that's generally what it is for like most groups. Like us, like I was just explaining, like I've Adam, Chug, and myself, and we just cover all the bases, like Hook just explained. Like I'll give a general game plan kind of thing of what we're trying to do, and then Chug and Adam will enhance upon that if they see something that they can take advantage of.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's hard for like the main IGL to see what's going on across the line.
Yes.
So it's really helpful to have just you have people who are vocal and will make call outs and know kind of what's happening in a group fight. Oh, this flank looks like it's gonna fall, or someone's pushing over, stuff like that. And you put them responsible for making those call outs, so you don't feel like something's happening along the line. Say someone breaks through or a flank falls. A lot of the time, if you don't have these IGLs or designated people to speak or give call outs, you'll end up having a flank fall and you hear nothing about it and you're just wondering why you're getting backstabbed.
Yeah.
A lot of people just kind of sulk and sit in silence after they die.
There's seriously nothing worse than fucking a flank falling and no one calling it out, whether it's in like an actual match or pickups or whatever. It's always frustrating because everyone has the ability to talk, fucking if they have a mic, and most people do.
Yeah, well, even that's something we talked about at the beginning, how important situational awareness is. And if you can, if you're on a flank and you can just say something as simple as right down, left down, it kind of takes a small bit of weight. Like even someone like me, I like to think I have a really good awareness and know where everyone is most of the time and where I'm supposed to be. But like sometimes it's like, man, my teammate really just fucking died right behind me. Didn't want to tell me that I'm about to have a bayonet right up my asshole, It's like, yeah, maybe I could have spun around in the middle of my group fighting stuff, but I really just don't want to.
Just block it all, Adam. Come on.
Yeah, just block it all. And usually like stuff like that is, I most of the time will put the responsibility of the person who died. Like, yeah, they didn't call it out. You should probably still know that your whole team is dying. You can see it in the kill feed, but it is a nice weight off of your shoulder. And if from a team perspective, because not everybody's going to be on the same skill level as the guy who's the best. You're really mostly helping out the people that are kind of middle of the line where they don't have that crazy awareness, so that if they hear right flank down, they might turn to their right and not die. Sometimes they might still die because they're bad, but it could help. It will help a lot of the time.
Especially in mid, like there's a ton of situations where I just hear like right is losing or right is dead. Like look out mid. And it just causes me to turn because I'm not in any situation where I'm at a threat from my mid, opponent. But if I hear that and fucking turn, then I'm gonna be, less likely to just get upstabbed in the side of the head for no reason.
Exactly. Well, and we talked about this earlier too. It's like there's so many fucking more bayonets in mid that are just way closer to each other. It
Yep.
can be really like taxing to have to think about, wow, there's more bayonets that aren't on my monitor right now. That sounds fucking great. I can't wait to be stabbed in my ear fucking lobe.
Yep.
I will say it gets quite annoying when you're dealing with guys like Cool Guy and K-pop who don't speak.
That fucking is tough.
Like for callouts, like there's someone behind you or something.
I mean, callouts, up downs, really anything for that matter.
All you have
Just
to say is fucking help me, and then it'll work out.
Yeah.
Fucking help me.
I do want to talk about the scoreboard a bit now. Now I know each and every single one of you always press tab after a round. Like don't lie, don't act like you don't.
Fuck.
I press tab around. I could be in a 1v2 and I'm pressing tab.
Make sure his Katie's good.
I gotta kill one of these guys to go even. I can't die.
So yeah, let's talk about that scoreboard a bit. So there's like the top fraggers, and then there's like sort of like the middle of the pack support players, I guess, and then there's just like the bottom fraggers that, I don't know. I guess they could be support players, or maybe they're doing badly, having an off day. I don't know. But like as guys that are running like a regimental group fighting team and whatnot, how much weight do you put on like top fraggers versus the people that aren't doing so well on the scoreboard, at least?
Like in terms of like after the group fight, like talking with them, or like just how much you rely on your top players.
Yeah, I guess so.
It depends entirely on the situation. Like there's many reasons why guys go negative. They have off days, they're playing better players. I personally don't care for the excuses that much. Just because I think winning's more important than the scoreboard, although I won't deny having a nice KD on top of winning is always always fun. Yeah. It's like you get the team accomplishment, and if you're going at least positive, you also get the personal accomplishment. In the TR, we're not very I think we've told people like in group fighting, like if you're sensitive, it's not the place to be. Equal got absolutely, he went 0.23. He was the only player to go negative of 15, and he did it versus the TKF. He got personally attacked, broke probably every single rule we have for a month, and just consistently slammed him until he improved. We did the same with Siege when he started off 0-10 versus the QR, and it's not that we, I mean, we do it for jokes, not that we're serious, but kind of the emphasis behind it is don't want to be the butt of the joke in that situation, improve. Now, at the same time, there obviously is a limit, and again, there's reasons why people go negative. You could have poor Private Jimmy of the K-Ray facing Pepperoni on that left flank there. You're going to expect him to go 1-17 because he's going to get his ass target switched every round in a row, because good old Pep knows that he can get a free kill there.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Though when your top guys start going negative, that's kind of when you sort of need to address that issue, because should they really be starting? Like, there's only so bad someone that calls himself a support player can do. Are they really supporting the team if they're going 5-25? I guess that's when I would say after the group fight, you need to run more trainings, and if they don't improve, start looking to the B team on someone that you can play in their position, unless they are really in that situation like Pep in NAHDL, where he may be going double negative, but he's consistently in that 1v3, and just simply looking back on a Twitch clip will show you that.
Yeah, see, for my regiment, unfortunately, I'm kind of just stuck with what I got, and I just gotta keep moving forward with it. I don't have enough people. I don't have enough people to just like replace and stuff. So like, I have to like, with teaching my guys, I have to be very careful with how I say certain things, because like I have to, because I'm trying to build it up, and I mentioned that a lot, earlier in this discussion or this podcast. So I have to really be careful of that and make sure that everybody's try to get everybody on the same page. But I'm not really gonna care about stats, too much. I mean, I'm gonna care stats for like me and maybe Peep and a couple of other people, because like we're expected to do good. Like that's just so. But for everybody else, I mean, I might look at it to see like if people are improving, because I treat KD with like people as like stepping stones.
Yeah.
If I see, prime example was Mickle. Mickle didn't really care about melee, but he would still show up to our regular trainings that we do melee, and then he's been showing up to our standard melee trainings that we have on separate days, and he's improved like drastically. And I begged him to be put, like, I wanted him to be on my comp team because he's really good at blocking. I mean, he hasn't meleeed with XMG or anything that he only uses. We've only been using the standard melee, but just his improvement, especially not even with dueling, but also with group fights, he's just improved a lot. Like, he can block a lot, like almost all my spins, in my fate spams. So I really wanted him to be on my team. So freaking begged him, and he finally joined. But yeah, I'm kind of just stuck with where I'm at, and I just gotta keep going until hopefully, I don't know, till we get more people who are interested. I mean, we have a group fight against the 26th this Saturday, so that's going to be a kind of a little test to see where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially because you're building something up, you almost, like, KD is a good measurement of, like, okay, who's doing good and where, kind of thing. That's for, like, when everything's like standardized and people have their spots, and you're looking at if someone's, if they're in mid and they're going like triple negative, like, dude, what the fuck's happening? Like, but when you're building it up, it's like, okay, if Carry Jimmy is trying to get his blocking up, you can't really fucking shit on him for going triple negative because he's still learning, and you put him in that position, and it's just like a building process.
Mm-hmm.
It can definitely be used to figure out, someone maybe going triple negative on the mid and just swap him to flank.
Exactly.
There are also situations like with Arna, he's best ping on NA, he's at 120 on New York, he can't block, so he just goes in the mid and just stabs, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
And just looking at his KD, kind of discovered that early on why he can't play flank. I know me and Highlander had the same convo, I think, last week. It's like, with the newer guys, you probably don't want to play hardball with them because, they're still learning, and if you immediately, like, say, okay, we need to get you to a new position because you're not doing that well, they could just need a bit more time, or they could take it the wrong way as if you're calling them shit, when in reality you just, are trying to help them and help the team in the long run.
Yep.
I think from a TRB perspective, at least when and I know Greasy does the same thing, I agree with what SpitFire just said. A lot of the time you can use a scoreboard for kind of reference, especially during a match. You click tab going into a game, and looking at your team on paper, you should already kind of have an idea. Okay, who are the guys I'm expecting to be top fragging, who are going to be the middle of the pack, and who's going to be on the bottom there. And you go into a group fight, kind of having in your mind where you expect people to be. And during the group fight, if you see things are not quite right, why is Kappa middle of the table? Why is Bande, on the bottom? And then you kind of realize, okay, so something's clearly not working. We got to switch things around. People don't always speak up, even when they're doing bad. I have situations as well, because I managed the B team for TRB. But there's people who would play an entire group fight playing in a position where they absolutely despise, but not say anything till the end. And a lot of the time, you can figure that out by just kind of looking at the scoreboard and seeing, oh, this guy isn't, fragging what he should be. Is it because I've put him somewhere where he's uncomfortable playing, where he's not good at? Do I have to switch things around? And also, I think when you look at a scoreboard as well, you don't really want to. Obviously, you're going to have people who frag a lot. There are always star players in a team who are going to get higher numbers than others. But what you want to see really is quite like a balanced.
Yeah.
You don't want the first guy having 35 kills and the bottom having 5. You want to see just around this, from after the top 2. You kind of want to see around no more than 1 or 2 kills difference as you're going down.
Yeah. And
I think that's a good sign of a strong team, a really good line, all competent players, all knowing what they're doing. So I think unless someone like does really, really bad, even after switching them around, we don't use the scoreboard that much for reference. It's more of a kind of a thing that's there for us to figure out what's going right, what's going wrong during a group fight.
Yeah.
And obviously, like I said, what you want to see in it is just similar numbers, similar kills, similar frags across the board. Not, two guys sitting in the shitter and like 2 or 3 on top with 20, 30 plus.
Now I want to ask, how do you guys differentiate between a support player and someone who's just flat out doing badly? Because like the scoreboard can say someone is like 0 and 15, but what if that person has been feeding kills to someone the entire match, right?
Yeah.
So like, what do you guys like? How do you guys gauge the difference between a support player and someone who's just doing bad?
Someone for us is like Wraith. He consistently gets like a lesser score than you would think for someone of his skill. That's because he's either always setting someone up for like a 3 kill feed and just to get into a spot, or he's always that one teeing up that up down. He's always that one fucking eating that target swap so someone can trade for a better player or for a better opportunity at the moment in the fucking fight as it's happening. Like he's always that one that takes it to the fucking chin. And we can recognize that as, he's doing his job and choosing to go down for the team like consistently, because he's not one to fucking just fuck up a random block like I do sometimes. He's not one to fucking just side block and randomly eat shit. He is always fucking eating it for his flank player or his guy that he wants to get in, and he's the most secure player that you can play with, even if he's not doing well on the scoreboard. Something that you just analyze over time.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with Turtle. If there's anybody who's ever vouched for Wraith, regardless of his score on a scoreboard, and I've talked to Chuk about this so often, and a lot of people, the comfort of having someone like Wraith next to you, like a veteran meleeer in a line, even if he's going 10 and 17 or whatever, I'll tell people it's like, yeah, you know why I'm on top of the scoreboard? Because Wraith never, ever, ever let his guy kill me for free. If that guy target swapped onto me, Wraith stabbed him in the back. And usually I don't think it's just hard to tell the difference between a support player and someone who's just doing bad as that often, because usually the support players, quote unquote, are people that are either good group fighters or good meleeers, but they're just either not having that good of a game, or they're just, they don't have super high group fight IQ. Like even like the way you play Ostro, sometimes the way that like you never go super ultra negative, and even in pickups, like you do really well sometimes. The way you play could be looked at as a quote unquote support style, although I think it definitely needs some tweaking. But like there have been times even in that all-star match where you would pull Julian or Rect or whoever out into a 1v1, and I could just like come over and stab them, and then we go run the line. And as far as being able to tell the difference, it's usually pretty easy in my opinion. Usually it's people that are good, but they're just not having that good of a game because the person next to them is having a good game. Their teammate, like even Mapbob, everybody knows that even if Mapbob doesn't have a good score, he's fucking running through a line and there's 3 people trying to stab him in the back and he's blocking all of them, and you get to go stab them all in the back for free, and it's great. Or like Pilot, people with more odd group fighting personalities, I guess, because they just run around and do crazy shit and nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, but you just stab the people in the back. So if you ask me, I think telling the difference between a support player and a bad player isn't that difficult, because if there's a bad meleeer on your team or they're just not that good in general and they have a bad score, they're not really support players as much as they're just kind of like fodder, and they're just kind of holding the cohesion of the line, while a support player, excuse me, is someone that's good at melee, that even if they're not doing well, they're blocking attacks and they're not dying for free often.
I think going into most group fights, who on the team is more of a support player and who isn't. I think I guess it's kind of hard to define. Support players don't always, do poorly in terms of frags and stuff. But going into a group fight, you kind of know, all right, this guy probably isn't going to get the top frag, but he is very reliable when it comes to just baiting people in with the target switches and being a very reliable person when it comes to blocking them. And in essence, feeding kills to people to his left and right, so enabling them to get more kills. I think every team has support players. Every good team has. If you ask any good team, who are your top support players, I'm pretty sure they can, name it off at the top of their head. It's just people who are really reliable when it comes to blocking that up down, blocking the target switches, and if you need anything from them, whether that's dragging out for 1v1, they're always the most reliable person to carry that out.
Cool. Anyone have anything to add about support players or players that are doing badly?
Just don't suck.
Don't suck. Easy.
I agree.
Now, I will say it on a personal account. It does feel good to press tab and see yourself at the top. But for you to be at the top, others have to be below you, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're better or they're really bad. It just means that in that particular group fight on that particular day, you just are getting the kills, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're
I want to talk about sort of an interesting topic about how a regiment actually gets their roster. I think there's two main ways, and that is having homegrown talent versus imported talent. Some regiments are a mix of both. Um, I guess homegrown talent would be someone like Adam. Adam joined the 45E a year ago, has stayed in the 45E, has been through all the trials and tribulations like within the 45E, and is now really good. He's not imported at all. He's homegrown. Um, Someone imported would be me actually. I think it was like a week or a week and a half ago. I joined the NR39 just for their group fighting competitive side, and um, I've boosted their team a whole bunch because now they have a solid flank, someone who they can rely on to block and whatnot. So I think I've strengthened their roster a lot, and that would be importing a player with 3,600 hours. Um, and I think we've seen imported talent with the TRR. I think SpitFire can speak on that with Paprika um, and others. Um,
Yeah, only one or two people have joined the TRR for the group fighting.
Yeah.
and they won an RGL, so obviously imported talent works. So yeah, what do you guys think of that? Homegrown talent versus imported talent?
As for imported, I think there's kind of two definitions. You can have a guy like Bob who's already, who just went to the KRA, which is his 7th or 8th regiment swap. He's already that top E group fighter, but then you may have someone that is lesser known. I don't really have an example off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's been people that have gone to another regiment. They've been known and okay, but they've never really excelled. They haven't kind of advanced their skill until they went to a new regiment. I think Cool Guy would be one of those guys. He was a good meleeer and a good dueler, but he really wasn't that great of a group fighter. And he had decided to not join a regiment after the White Coats disbanded for like a few months until he joined us and played in one match. And we'd kind of just spent the first few weeks, I guess, improving his style. And, he's now a very good center player.
Yeah.
I don't really care if a team is imported or not. I don't really think I can say I don't like it because of my current position. I don't really think there's any team that is a majority imported, not even the TR, which is probably the most of any of RGL, because it's still about 50-50. So I don't think it makes a huge difference, but others may feel more cheated by it when an imported team beats them, because I know that was the case, even in a few RGL matches in which, I think a prime example wouldn't be the TRB, and I don't want to say they didn't because they didn't, but they went from being 15-2'd, and obviously they improved on their own, but then they had guys like Fupa, Kotz, and Bob join them, and you can kind of feel like how the QR would be upset had all those players been allowed to play, and it completely reverted the score. So there's obviously reasons why you should feel upset about it, and there's other ways to define it, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean, being on the receiving end of fucking a match and that you're fucking losing is always sucky, but it's just you got to deal with what it is. If another team has transfers, and that's just fucking, it is what it is. You just got to buck up and deal with it. There's nothing that you can do to change it. So being like sourpusses about it just doesn't help.
Yeah, just on the point. After the transfers, actually, we only played Cots because he was the only person who was allowed to play. I think we took
How long
a
have they played? They played
no,
for the
not in the
Kerry, right?
RGO. Yeah, they played for
Yeah, they played.
Kerry.
Yeah,
Um,
they 15-3'd us.
yeah, but I think in the TRB, like we obviously TRB gets a lot of transfers. Particularly on the EU side, we don't get many. NA, but I think the kind of melee powerhouse EU side of the TRB does attract a lot of transfers for that, and it has in the past as well. I think right now our B team, which is a very strong B team, has probably starting 60-70% of transfers. But what we've done is we've always allowed homegrown, so people who, whether there are people who started as a recruit in the regiment and worked their way up, or were people who transferred, weren't so good at melee, but got good while in the TRB, we make sure to give them the chances, the opportunities to play at least in the B team. And there's plenty of ways to work up as well. I think when you transfer to play in the A team, you kind of have to earn it as well. It's not just, oh, you transferred straight away, bam, you go into the team. There's a process which you kind of have to familiarize yourself with the players, try and develop some chemistry. But then again, like, though we do get a lot of transfers, we are, very happy with the amount of, I guess, homegrown or players which have been trained and got good under while they were in the TRB. So I don't think it's too much of a problem. I definitely disagree with, like, transfers being made mid, like RGO, EUL, stuff like that, and then players having played for one team then playing for another. I think that can kind of annoy. I can understand why that can annoy people. But other than that, I don't see too big of an issue with it. I do, however, like I've talked about it before with other people in the TRB as well as other regiments. As much as we love transfers coming in, especially good melee players, we don't want to kind of create a situation where one regiment is just so overpowered with strong melee players that it kind of eradicates the competition. I think Rect and
that's not
Bob,
fun.
for example, joining the KRA today was actually quite good, because I think, with those two players, the KRA are in a really good position to, become, competitive when it comes to fighting 51st already, they beat them. But the TRB, QRR, I think KRA have a good chance of putting up a really good fight. And I think transfers like that, to different regiments, is really good. I think if everyone came to TRB to QRR, it just kind of makes a really uncompetitive scene.
Yeah. To go off of what you said, like if someone transfers and they just can't build that chemistry, like initially when Matt Bob first transferred to the 45E, it took us a good amount of time just to like get down his play style and how to like work with us. Like he was with 6-3 for I don't know how long, and his chemistry with them was fucking on point. But when he came over to us and he was doing his same thing, we were having really bad issues. Like Adam was having a lot of problems keeping up with him, and he would get 2v1'd. And it was just like, we're doing something wrong by not expressing like how we can fix the issue. But so like we just need to morph the play style that he has known and fucking gotten really good at into what we can do as well, and to build that chemistry there to where, like, instead of just having into a 2v1 now, he, like, we've expressed to him like, hey, we need you to wait a little bit, like, and he'll still fucking move out as if he's going to 2v1 or 3v1 or fucking just 1v10 the whole team. But fucking he'll just he waits now, and he waits for the opportunity to jump in, whether it be a second delay or a fucking 5-second delay. He'll communicate it, and we know what he's doing at this point, instead of fucking just jumping in and getting up down immediately. And that just like due to miscommunication and not understanding what's going on with the team itself.
Now I want to get Highlander's opinion on this, because I think like the 45V you guys obviously have MapBob, and you also had, not many people remember, but you had the IGA merger. I think you got Taylor, and did you guys get any other meleeers from that?
Yeah, we got people like Peen, we got Wraith from it. That was like the biggest one. Wraith for a very, very long time was just like the straight best meleeer in our regiment, and he came over from transferring. But yeah, we got a bunch of different guys that were pretty decent at melee, getting up there in melee, that kind of thing. Not too many now because, people just filter out over time. That's just what it is. But the big one was Wraith and Taylor and people like Peen. I don't know if many people know who he is, but just those kind of guys.
Right, so I think the only regiment represented here that has not had any sort of imported talent is Highlander. I know
Nobody wants to freaking come over here because our regiment is just structured differently from everybody else, and it conflicts with people who only want to do melee, so we don't get any transfers.
That's just how it is. And we didn't get we still rarely get transfers. It's just like Grand Army guys at this point. Like I don't view them as as transfers because it's been a really long time and everyone's meshed together. The culture is all the same now. There's like no person who reminisces about the Grand Army and was like, yeah, when we did this, blah blah. It's like no, everyone's 45E. Like the only people who have transferred over in recent memory that are like, oh my god, big dogs, is Matt, Bob, and Chris, and we don't get a lot of transfers either. It's just once in a while, fucking an insane mailer comes over and it's like, oh cool, it makes us that much stronger.
Now, Highlander, you did try very hard to get a merger with the Seven Foos. I'm not sure how involved you were in it, or if it was mostly Naster, but I think if that went through, like your team would be looking much better.
Yeah.
But I think going 100% homegrown, if you're like not a huge regiment and you're not like very like in the community, I think you guys are a bit like isolated compared to some other regiments. Um, but that's kind of a recipe to have like a tough time, I guess, to come up with a roster. So like, what are your plans to have a group fighting team, I suppose?
Well, I mean, when it comes to at least the roster side of things, the only way that I'm gonna have a set roster is just I'm gonna need continuous help from other regiments. I mean, like I said earlier, SpitFire has been helping us a lot, prepping for the 26 group fight that we're having, and like I'm just gonna have to do like a buttload of scrimmages, and like I have to have outside help, because again I'm not well versed in the group fights. I know general concepts and what individuals should be doing in that said position, but how to like cultivate and make it our own strategy and to try to create something new, I'm not there yet. So yeah, I definitely need outside help to get things going. So yeah, just scrimmages and that. So
Now, I will say that homegrown talent lasts much longer because if you look at something like the 12ES, it's sort of like easy come, easy go. But with homegrown, like I don't think Adam is gonna leave the 45E if someone
Unless
like
I
offers him something
right-click
lucrative.
him and ban him, he's probably not gonna do it.
I love the 45E, man. I love it here.
So yeah, homegrown, like I think it takes more effort, but it lasts longer. Whereas if you somehow convince someone to join your regiment, someone could do the very same thing the very next day, right?
Someone that joins a regiment off of a transfer is going to leave off of a transfer. It's only a matter of time, really. Maybe not necessarily on the NA side. They seem a bit more split up, but on the EU, not to trash anyone, but I think I've already had conversations with KRA guys, like guys like Bob and Rect, and then other famous top EU group fighters like Liam. They join these regiments, but it seems they join more for the melee and less for the actual regiment themselves, and eventually that melee is going to force them to leave, which is why I think like a situation with the 47E is you join for the regiment and not the melee. So if you join there and you get good at melee, I don't really see you ever leaving that regiment unless like they stop doing comp, which once you're good at comp, there's really no reason to end it. Any regiment that does just I don't want to say they aren't thinking straight, but it doesn't really make sense.
True.
Now, there are situations in which transfers don't leave. I would have thought Paprika would have left by now. I will say I'm quite shocked he is not. Good on him. Casual shout out there. So transfers at times can be integrated very successfully. And I think like the ES transfers was a pretty successful one, especially saying that guys like Pep and Shanks had already had experience in the TR, although albeit Pep's dating back all the way to 2019. And it also seems like transfers like with the IGA, with Wraith, Taylor, and Peen have been very successful. So maybe it speaks that if they're going in a group, it works better versus going in solo.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and like with the Grand Army, like the culture of it, like, we've done one other transfer in the 45E history, just to go a little off topic, but like the culture was the exact same with the two groups. Like there's nothing in rules that was different. There was nothing like just completely like, this is my group and this is my crew. Like everyone was just fucking integrated immediately. So it wasn't like, yeah, we lost people like as people realized this isn't what I want, and they filtered out. But that's what happens with literally every huge transfer. That it's inevitable, and not everyone's going to be happy. And I'm pretty happy with the people that we got like at the end of it all. Some dope motherfuckers.
I want to talk about like the different sort of levels to group fighting. So there's like regiments such as the 31E or the 33rd that really have no business competitive group fighting, but for some reason they do, and they seem to have a lot of fun. Like they don't really care if they're getting stomped. So I guess like they're at the very, very bottom of I guess what you would call a competitive team. And then there's regiments like the NR39 where it's like, yeah, like we can beat those like bottom tier regiments, but we can't really compete against like even like a 63EB team, for example, right? Or a team that just has people up and down the roster that can block, I guess, because we're still fielding like applicants who side block, so it gets a bit tough. And then I suppose there's regiments that can sort of like gatekeep some of the top tier regiments, such as the TRR and 45E, KRA. Um, yeah, they can take rounds off them, but at the end, the top tier regiments just have like too many superstars, too much team synergy and whatnot. And then obviously we have like the RGL winners, the QRRs, the TRRs. I think 45E came close. Um, But yeah, like what do you guys think of like the different tiers of regiments, and how do you think like a regiment can sort of climb that and get to the next level?
I mean, obviously, just getting better communication and getting in sync with one another and just improving in their actual skill by the person is the main factors that's going to happen. One phrase I didn't really like was like saying, like guys like the 30, 31E or 33rd don't have a place in competitive, and I agree in the later half where like they have fun and that's why they do it. They're not doing it to win. They go into that group fight knowing that they're going to get their asses kicked in, but it's just about improvement and enjoying the game. So
Yeah.
for that matter, I do think every regiment has a place in competitive, and I do believe every regiment should fill that place. Obviously, some groups prefer to be more lax and chill, as it took over 2 years to get the carrier to actually use their players to do comp. So some regiments may not enjoy it, but as long as the players have fun, I do think every regiment has a place in competitive. Um, as for the different tiers, on NA, I have heard a lack of mention of the 63E. I do think
Yeah.
combined with the TR, I don't know. I'm going purely off the score of 63 versus 45E and TR versus 45E, which aren't accurate representations due to the rosters in the presented group fights, but both group fights were easily won by 63 and TR. So if I were to rank them in tier, I would say TR and 63 would compete for 1 and 2, 45E for 3, KRA for 4, 7 Foos for 5, 77 for 6. Now, with the recent KRA transfers from the EU side, if they play guys like Ben, Recht, and Bob on a New York server combined with guys like Elcom, Pepperoni, and Green, they could contest the number 3 spot. That's very subjective though, so I don't really want to get into it, but there's definitely a tier, and it's definitely, I mean, I guess you could say unfair to the worst regiments, but that's going to be the situation in literally every tier list. But
Yeah.
every regiment can move up the tier list if they really want to put in that time.
Yeah.
Now, if they don't have the people that are willing to do it, then they're screwed. But if they do, then it's up to the regiment leaders to organize those scrims and practices to utilize their skill to its fullest potential.
Yeah, like I was about to say, like it's simply just a tier chart. Like fucking, that'd be like if I'm a lower rank regiment fighting a TR and fucking losing. That'd be like fucking 2018 melee me complaining about losing against Asher. It doesn't make sense. I'm just not fucking good enough yet, and like there's no reason to complain about it. It's just a skill thing, and it's just about putting your fucking nose to that grind. It's not fun. It's not a fun grind when you're not good
No.
and to get
no.
good. But fucking, believe me, Highlander, we've been through that building period, and it fucking sucks, but it's really rewarding. And TR can speak to it too. It's really rewarding after you
Yeah.
get to that point of like, we're fucking top
Man,
dogs in this fucking fight now. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna keep trying as hard as I can. 'Cause I don't want to give up on this. I've tried to get the 4070 to do melee for like, man, it's probably been like a year and a half. It's been kind of because I mean because I'm the only one doing this. I mean, Naster and Montfort and Amit, they don't really care a whole lot because when it comes to the competitive stuff, because Naster and Montfort were NW players and they kind of hate like how that stuff kind of like became with like all the toxicity and stuff, and just there are other factors. And I don't want to speak for them in that. But they just don't care enough on the competitive stuff, so it's kind of up to me. And again, like I said, I need outside help. So I've asked SpitFire. I've literally been in talks with SpitFire like almost every day, trying to figure out what to do. I mean, Sunday we had, I think from the 4070 we had like 8. I think we had like 10 people, and I would say about 6 were on my competitive roster. So, and we just practicing with the TRR, and we're slowly like getting better, but yeah, it's gonna be a long ass grind, I'll tell you that for sure.
It's just about having meaningful competition and practices. Is like, it's as long as you're not wasting your time doing something, it's fucking always shit to learn from.
Yes.
Now, I don't think we're like in a state of like one regiment having a monopoly. I think like in the NW days, I think 63E were like the top dogs, and then there was like a huge drop off with everyone else. But I don't think that's really the case with the melee scene in the NA side, at least. I'm not sure what the situation is with EU. Maybe Hooked and Kappa can sort of speak on that a bit.
Yeah, can I just go back to the point earlier about like the tiers of regiments in group fighting? In EU at least, I think it's really hard for a regiment that isn't like seen as a top tier, a top group fighting reg who has like history, or in recent performances shown that they are let's say top 3 best regs. Sure, you can say with grinding and with practice, a regiment can get there by kind of training its players, but at the end of the day, I think for a regiment to break that barrier and hit the top levels, it does just require transfers. I think from the EU regs right now, let's say mid-tier group fighting regs, so ones that can definitely take rounds off the top ones, they can beat smaller regs, have some star players. A key example maybe Alt PR. I know they've been practicing for months now, trying to get their group fighting team up to like higher standards. They have stars. They have Julian, obviously, who's just insane. I think it's one of the best, if not the best group fighter on EU right now. And obviously Maxim, who plays beside him a lot of the time. They've worked really hard. They've nearly beaten the 51st for one. But I think they've kind of hit a point where they can't get much better. Their reg who is very unlikely to get transfers because they're German-speaking reg. They are a German reg, and they've kind of come to a stage where unless they get in 1 or 2 more stars, top players, they're not going to be able to break through that barrier, that wall, which is being gatekept by regiments such as a KRA, ourselves, TRB, QRR. And the thing is, for a lot of these medium regs, especially on EU, when you have homegrown talent who've gotten really good kind of got noticed through pickups, melee tournaments, all that stuff, they eventually just transfer away. They kind of recognize themselves being, I'm kind of good at this comp stuff. But this team I'm playing with, they don't seem to be going anywhere. They're not beating these top teams. So at the end of the day, they just transfer away. So it
I
is
think
very
that's
much
definitely an EU
locked.
issue.
Yeah, so I think EU is really locked. Like, I'd say KRA definitely is one of the regs who kind of broken into that top tier of group fighting recently. Regiments have fallen out of it as well. I think 51st for one. They aren't, the powerhouse that they used to be. And part of that is because I wouldn't say they're unappealing, but when you're looking for a regiment to join, lots of people who, there are lots of reg hoppers on the EU, good melee players who reg hop quite a bit. Very few of them will look at 51st and say, that's the regiment I want to join. So that has kind of allowed regiments such as the KRA to kind of break that top barrier and become, a top 3 group fighting reg on EU. But I find it really hard to see mid-tier regiments, like mid-tier group fighting regiments or low-tier ones, being able to break it unless they get transfers. And it's hard to get transfers unless you're already up there.
Yeah, I think transfers definitely help with like you said, you advance to a certain point with a couple star players that you have, and then the transfers just boost that up to another level. Like, it's instant. Like, you can see the instant change of like, damn, we're fucking on some people that we couldn't before. But I don't think it's impossible. It just takes a much longer time because you have to just, the process of building up those superstars. Like Adam, like he fucking shot up out of nowhere fast, but it took time for him to fucking become a melee monster, and like it just happened under our noses, and we didn't realize it until like a little bit later. But fucking, it happened, and it can happen in random groups. Like, I don't know how. I've said this before. I don't know fucking how people like Adam got so good in our group, because we weren't especially at the time, we weren't the place to like cultivate it. He just fucking randomly got good, and it was like, okay, this is fucking cool. But I think it's definitely doable for groups to over time build that up into superstar status. But I definitely think it's an EU issue of like that transfer hopping of good meleeers and good comp players of like, they're just going to go to the top teams because they don't want to lose. They don't want to take that time to fucking just eat shit constantly, because they don't have to. They can just go to a better team and win, and it's much more
get a starting position,
appealing. Exactly.
Beat other top teams, and what's the point of me sitting here 8 months trying to get players better when I can just transfer?
This is kind of a curiosity question for Hooked and Kappa. I know the best example now would probably be the LPR and the 40E, because I think it makes sense for Germany due to their high population compared to countries such as like regiments like the 28 Estion, which I believe appeal to Dutch people, or even at times like the GDE or LGC, which is French speaking. Do you think there ever could be like a number 1 and number 2 EU team which is not English speaking, like Russian, French, or German?
I think like Russian's probably the most likely, because like they have a very large player base, and if like recently players like Churchill and Drexler have like started to play again for the first war, and so they beat the Thudovitsia recently. So I feel like they're pretty up and coming. Like, I think
they stopped them. Yeah, I think it was 15-2. The first war beat First Division, and our B team played the first WA a few weeks before the first WA merged with the 13th, and I think our B team, I think we played to 11-0, and then the server kind of had some issues, so we had to stop. But there are lots of good melee. There are lots of good Russian meleeers, lots of good like Russian-speaking meleeers. The issue is like I think the Russian community is really divided. There have been so many split offs. I think the first WA has split off so many times. I can really never see it, becoming one reg.
Yeah,
like all of Russia becoming one reg
like,
and having a.
They got like the first WA, the second one, and the Kura Moscows were all kind of divided.
Yeah, I think the most likely maybe is Germany. I think the 40 have a couple of really good meleeers, and obviously, I've already talked about the OPR and how they've risen so much. in terms of their group fighting ability, and are starting to challenge regiments like the 51st. I think the most recent group fight was 15-14 to the 51st,
Wow.
which is really good. 51st are very well established in the EU melee community, as always as one of the top teams. So if at any point the 40 were to merge with the OPR, which I don't think will happen, but say if they did, OPR can definitely challenge and break through into those top 3, let's say, group fighting regs on EU.
So there's like obviously a gravitational pull that regiments have that kind of suck in like all the players that might be looking to join a more melee oriented regiment or something that better suits them. So like is this gravitational pull something that regiments can sort of like turn up? Like what goes into how strong that pull is?
Probably with a situation like TR of like they're just fucking grinding group fights and people are constantly being competitive with each other, and that like attracts people who are competitive in nature and are fucking good at melee. If you just see a group fucking doing the thing that you like a lot and constantly improving and being able to say I am the best, then if someone doesn't have any ties to other groups or doesn't have any pulls to other groups, it doesn't make sense to not do the best in the business.
I think in the TRB that's more secondary to lots of the transfers that we get. I think a lot of the stuff we do outside of Holdfast, as well as of course I think the way we play events, or the kind of people who have experience playing with us, they kind of find it appealing. But a lot of the time, when it comes to someone joining or transferring to us, they are influenced a lot by stuff we do outside of events. So whether that's a lot of it is other games. I think I'll say League of Legends, for example.
Oh my god.
A lot of people really enjoy League is a massive game, and I think we're one of the only regiments, at least on EU, who have players who play at a high level and constantly play. So many people have started playing League after joining TRB, and I know people who, started playing before, and then because through playing with us and stuff, have decided to fill in the transfer papers.
Yes, that is why I did it.
Yeah, I'm translating to the TRB because of League of Legends reasons.
Oh god, oh fuck, it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously the kind of competitive aspect is also a pool, but I'd like to think the reason we've been able to not only get transfers but also keep them, I think you have to keep them entertained, not only on the holdfast aspect, but outside you need to get them involved in the community, and with that you can keep them and not have them what we said earlier about once you get a transfer they're always free to hop around. So I think that's really important.
I think a lot of these top melee regiments, on EU, it's a bit more common to actually be split into companies, and I don't think this is. I think this may be the third the highest. I don't think it's as big as that melee atmosphere, but being able to choose what company and being able to choose the people you want to be led in and choose the people you want to play with in events, to me is very appealing in a regiment, and I think that can sway someone's opinion. I think the best example would definitely be like with the TRB RSG, which arguably out of like any company Holdfast is, people certainly can talk their shit, but the TRB RSG are probably like the best single line I can think of in Holdfast by the average skill, and that itself can just be appealing. If like the whole regiment wasn't enough to attract you, being able to choose, you can play in every single event with the top tier guys and be led by a bunch of chads. Then why not go?
I wanted to talk about something. Oh yes, yes, yes. Let's talk about some of the more sinister ways of importing talent, so to speak.
Gasp.
Oh no.
Oh no. So I know, like for example, I know some stuff went on with like the 12ES. I don't know what's proven. Like, I don't want to get into any specifics, but it's all hearsay. But like,
It's
what do
all
you guys?
true and it's all false.
I sniped all of them.
So, like, do you guys think that everyone is fair game, or is some things off limits when it comes to importing talent with maybe a carrot on a stick?
I've kind of shared this opinion. It's kind of a hybrid more between the EU and A sort of view. Is like we can just say like regiment sniping. You don't have to say the sinister way because that just takes longer to say. Um, if it's messaging someone that doesn't understand what they're being asked, then I don't like it. Um, I've been asked, including by people in this VC, to join other regiments. But I have enough of a brain to just tell them no or sometime in the future. So I personally don't care. Like I know Equal, Perk, and guys like those, they've had offers and they continue to get offers, but I'm not gonna get upset by it because they have an understanding to say no because they're being asked to go to another regiment because they're cool and they have talent. Um, so I personally don't care if we lose people or gain people through talent. Now it depends on obviously with who I have to deal with in my regiment. I do care more on how they gain those people, which is why I don't let them deal with it anymore. But I won't name names, although I'm sure we all know who I'm speaking of.
Oh yes.
Uh, but for me, if someone is getting messaged in the TR to join another regiment, I don't care unless it's like a new recruit who doesn't understand what they're being asked, or if they're being just 100% lied to. And we've had that, I think, really only happen once, and it was handled pretty swiftly by the other regiment.
Like,
Yeah, I agree. I think if it's like, say it's transfers that we've gotten who are then being messaged by other regiments going like, hey, oh, you should transfer to us instead. Or, oh, why did you transfer here? We can offer you this, this, this. If at some point they leave, we kind of just accept it. It's kind of like, okay, he wasn't, in essence, homegrown. He wasn't someone who kind of rose to the ranks, and was with the community. So if we lose them, we don't really see it. Of course, we'd love to keep members, but if people transfer out, those who were transfers initially, it's kind of like, oh well. But if it's someone who's been in the reg for a while, someone who's come in as a recruit, got to a certain rank, and then was being convinced to join somewhere else or express feelings, I think we do get concerned. Not concerned in the sense like, oh, why is XX regiment trying to reg snipe, but rather, what are we doing wrong, or what's kind of happened to make this guy not want to stay with us anymore. I think at the end of the day, if you're transferring regiments, you're doing it for a reason. At most people in the holdfast community, I think, are capable of making up their own minds. I think they are rational individuals. So, like reg sniping, as a word, it's not really that much of a problem in my eyes. I know other officers in my reg feel differently, but at the end of the day, if you're a player, you want to go somewhere, as long as you're not being lied to or like I don't know, bribed, I guess, saying like, oh, you're a lieutenant in your reg, come to my reg, you'll get captain. I don't see much of a problem. It's you should be capable of making a decision as to where you want to be, why you want to go, and how you want to play the game.
All right, Hooked. Well, I got you an offer. I got like $2 in Steam and a recruit tag with your name on it. What do you say, buddy?
Bag of chips.
Yeah.
On Steam. Yeah. No.
No, I think that's like how it is mostly for most like regiment leaders and high ranking dudes. It's like if someone leaves, it's like you said, if it's a transfer, it's like fuck, it sucks, especially if they were like something good in your team, but there's only so much you can do. That's just a problem with not retaining them due to community like aspect. But like you said, if it's someone who is like a homeboy from the recruit up and they leave, then it's like, okay, then we're doing something poorly and we need to address it.
now, what happens if someone disgruntled leaves and then all of a sudden his friend leaves, and then 2 days later, two of their friends leave? Then stuff starts adding up. Like, is that concerning for you guys, or is it this case by case?
It's unavoidable to a point because if someone has a friend that they're close with, that friend will always follow them. But you can always just fucking cut off communication with them and fucking stop the bleeding. But that's like a whole different thing of like, if someone's it's different. If someone's a friend of someone and they leave and they're going with their friend, like that's unavoidable. But if they're actively like saying like, hey, the grass is greener. I'm having such a great time. Suck my dick. Come over here, kind of thing. Like, then it's a different issue.
Yeah, I think the TRB hasn't really experienced similar stuff to that. We don't get a lot of transfers going out. I know EU regiments that have. I think KRA is probably one of the bigger examples of, say, X person leaving and then bringing 2, 3, 4 players with them. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, we had a large
Not sure how long it was ago, but when Bob transferred last time to the TRB, and people like Fupa, Jeff, Kotz, that whole stream of people came along. I think, of course, being on the receiving end of it, you don't really think about it at the time. You just kind of like, oh shit, I'm getting a ton of good players, people to join the company, people to join the line. It's great. But speaking to Ben about it from the KRA, and a lot of the time from them, it's kind of like, sure, they are friends, and they are transferring partly because they are happy playing next to each other. But what have we done wrong as a regiment? What decision making has gone wrong for us to lose multiple people to a regiment? And you have to kind of work that out and try and fix that as soon as possible, because you don't want the same thing happening. You don't want your comp team going into tatters because one guy's unhappy and then brings all his friends away.
Yeah.
So
that was an
Agreed.
issue. Oh, go ahead, Spit.
No, you can go.
Thank you. That was an issue that like we had initially with the 12ES of like Pep left, and it was a big blow because he was like, he's a cool dude, and he dipped to do his own thing, and I can respect that. But then we had long-standing members like Chug and Crunch leave, and we're like, okay, there's a fucking issue that's going on, and like what we did to take action was we just completely like removed ourselves from communicating with them. We didn't block people, like our own members, from communicating with them. We just like as a whole, because before we were like, hopping in the reg a lot, tagging them and interacting with them a lot in our own Discord, like pretty intertwined. We just like cut it off so people just, didn't fucking out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. Like it's not an option, not due to us forcing something, but just, lack of interaction. It's not a thing anymore.
I think the Kara example was pretty good because it's happened a few times, and kind of more like on the funny note. I think after RGL, when Kerry lost the third place match to 51st, VAR pinged either Stukov, Changa Jameson said, message me in 2 weeks when your A team all retires. And after his team left, I messaged him after and said, want an EU group fight now that you've lost your entire team? And it's not necessarily something that they can do. It relies entirely on the friendship that is formed within the comp team. I do think in any active team, all it takes is 1 or 2 people leaving and the rest follow. I could be wrong. Some people choose their regiments over their friends. I personally think that's just blind loyalty in my own opinion, but others may disagree. But it certainly has happened, and it certainly is going to happen again. I think like VAR argued with, was it Power, K-pop, a cool guy, one of those 3 or 2 of those 3, just 2 days ago in the Melee Discord on how there's no point in judging RGL in 6 months because half these Melee sweats aren't really loyal to the regiment. They're going to be gone by then. And within 48 hours, the 63 lost their best group fighter, and the QR lost arguably their best group fighter of all time. I don't know at the current moment. And the KRA suddenly jumped from probably like a 4th or 5th regiment place on both EU and NA to now contesting for the bronze.
Yeah, the Melee landscape does change. It seems month by month. There's always something going on.
That's what keeps it fun.
Just wait till everyone's like 22. They'll get the 45Es average age or around there, and everyone's going to retire in the 45E. It's my
so
prediction.
Fucking yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about transfers coming in and then sort of maybe overtaking someone who's homegrown and maybe forcing them to like sub out. So say you had like someone who's homegrown. They're not the best, obviously, but they're also not the worst. They know the fundamentals, know how to block, know how to target switch. But then you get a transfer of someone who's just a complete badass, just a complete superstar, right? So like from a logical perspective, obviously the superstar gets to play and the homegrown guy, I guess, has to set out, right? So, like, what do you guys value more? Do you value loyalty, someone who's loyal to a regiment, or do you value that sort of logical perspective of having a superstar on the field?
There should be a combination of both. I think a lot depends on like how badly do you want to win, but also like I believe in a practice match, everyone should get equal playing time. However, if it's a specific A team or B team, I do think you should play the better player. It's not like that homegrown player is kicked off comp. They can probably still play in the lesser matches. Obviously, they may take it wrongly, but if you get into that RGL situation where you want to win, you have to go with your best player. Um, like I think there was at times like with K-pop and Cool Guy where they weren't going to be played in the finals because they weren't homegrown and they joined just for that one match. Um, Now, obviously, due to some dark and unforeseen circumstances, a third of the A team, or 40% of the A team, was gone, and at that point, it wasn't a matter of we don't care that you're homegrown. We care now more about winning, and
Yeah.
so we played those transfers because we knew that although we were benching people that had actually literally been in the regiment for 2 years, two of them, one over 2 years, it was the finals match. They could play in a practice. They played in every RGL match up to that, but winning was valued over loyalty and time. I think it just depends on the match, and it can depend on the person. If someone comes in and automatically thinks they're starting and they're an asshole about it, bench them just to put them in check. But if they're actually like integrated into the community almost immediately, then you really shouldn't value them as a transfer, and you should value them as a full member of your regiment. And issues did start with the 12-year guys where like Honor like valued them as a full member of the regiment, whilst I kind of called them more 12-year guys who were new to the regiment just because they had been in for a few days and were now immediately starting in the QR match, which yeah, I think if they are integrated well, then they should be valued as a full regiment member, and I don't think the argument of transfer and loyalty even needs to be brought up. If they're being like dicks about it, or if you just want to really value the loyalty and time spent, then bench them and tell them they can play the next match. If they leave because of that, then you might as well get them out the door then versus at a later date.
I think TRBU has kind of a similar situation with TR, where we've had transfers, and a lot of these transfers are better than players who are currently in the team or have been in the past. I think it's also one of the main driving components to us setting up a B team, is to offer those who are probably once in the A team or those who are homegrown also an opportunity to play comp melee. I could definitely, off the top of my head, think of 2 or 3 players who would have been in the starting lineup, 8 months ago, who are now either just completely stopped meleeing or play on the B team. But that's kind of just the harsh reality of it. That sometimes when you get transfers who play a certain role or a certain position better than the old guy, regardless if he was a homegrown or not, a lot of the time you just replace it and you give it to it harsh. A lot of these players do continue to work hard. They get better, and they make themselves back onto the A team. And those who don't, there's people who just kind of give up, I guess, sadly, and stop mailing altogether. But there's also several who, keep going and they play on the B team. I think, for us at least, it's not. I'd like to think at least the B team players aren't too affected by it. I'd say our B team is probably still a top 5, top 6 group fighting team on EU. They've shown that they've competed against some top regs and won or taken several rounds off. But at the end of the day, if you have a transfer, as long as it's not, he joined yesterday, I'm going to throw you into the next fight. We don't do that. Obviously, we give him time to kind of fit in and get to know the people before we actually start starting them on these teams. But at the end of the day, if they're better, they suit the role more, they're going to get started over someone regardless if they're homegrown or not.
Playing to win.
Yeah, it's kind of
especially in tournaments. Like if it's friendlies and it's we're fighting a team who we know we have a high chance of beating, then we're not going to field the strongest team. We're not going to field the strongest possible player for each role, whether they're transfers or not. But say we're in the RGL and we're playing 51st, we're playing QRR, we're playing KRA, then we're going to play our strongest players. We're not going to water it down and put players who probably aren't good enough there, who could be the difference when it comes to winning or losing a round.
Yeah, because you got to understand, like, okay, I could be hurting one guy's feelings who's been here in a while and he's been training, but he's not good enough. Or I could throw everyone else's work away because I didn't want to hurt one person's feelings. And now, boom, we fucking took the L.
Yeah,
it is
like I said,
competitive.
it's important to still give them opportunities,
Yeah.
to play. Like, but at the end of the day, if you're in a RGL, you're there to win.
Exactly.
You're not there to make
Yeah.
friends.
Making friends is always a benefit, though.
Oh yeah, of course. Nothing wrong with that.
I think the fun starts when you get the new out of RGL season, when you start benching the players that have been on the A team for a while, because their skill is going down whilst the new guys' skill is going up at a rapid pace.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to start shifting players around, because better players are coming in. I think, at least for us, myself included, I've been moved around the lineup because better players have come in who played in the positions which I've been in. I'm still starting, but I don't know for how much longer. But there are players, who come in, whether that's homegrown or transfers, that do play these roles better than you. And for myself at least, I kind of accept it, and I know many others do as well.
The future is now, old man.
Yeah.
I have PTSD over that. Now, have you guys had like any like people on your roster just like leave your regiment because they didn't agree with how you guys were running things, and has that affected you guys moving forward at all?
Yeah. I mean, we've had a lot of people join the regiment, and we've had just as many people leave the regiment, primarily to bigger regiments like the KRA and the TRB. I think most notably would be guys like Mitchell and Pi, in which they were like our rising EU stars, but knock knock, tier EU is non-existent. And so they both went to the KRA, and they both later went to the TRB. Mitchell went back, but Pi's still there, and they seem to be enjoying themselves.
I actually
so
didn't know they were TRR. I did not know that.
they joined in the summer, and I think they left like June or July. Just
Okay.
I think their issues were more actually related to us having like shit cav company, but they were both like have both gotten very good. Not superstars, but good enough to be upper B, lower A teams for most of the major EU group fighting teams, and having like no EU comp there is kind of makes it very difficult to retain those players in that region. And I'm sure like other regiments that have one side dominated by one region face similar issues, because it's not really appealing being the afterthought in a regiment in terms of like EU NA relations.
Yeah, for the 47E, it was Hunter and Power. That was a really big setback.
Big goof.
Because Spicy and Peep, at the time, they kind of stopped caring about Melee a little bit. So that was probably like the most, that was probably the biggest setback. But Peep is starting to become a little bit more active in Melee. Spicy still isn't. So I've kind of recovered some of that, but I'm just, I just have to keep training my guys, and there's a couple of people who are starting to become, who are getting up there, but I need just more time.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will say the Hunter and Power situation was kind of something that like Hook mentioned back. At the time it's cool you get two POG players, but at the same time then you realize like those two people leaving kind of off the impatience of like not wanting to spend the time to form another group fighting team is like, I don't want to say they're not dicks for it. You know, they went for their own reasons, but it feels initially like kind of like a stab in the back from the person who's trying to form that team, because the players aren't willing to, you know, put in those 8 to 10 months to improve it themselves. And obviously people, you know, will go where they're happy, and they should, but it's always going to be kind of a tough, I don't know, like you can't, you have to at some level like always kind of realize that, you know, although you may go to another regiment for melee, while you're doing that, you're also kind of destroying another regiment's melee. But
I think people just have different priorities. Like Highlander's priority might be building up a team, but Power's priority might just be playing on a team where they're not getting stomped, right? So I think it's just like different people have different goals in mind, and they don't always mesh together.
that's true.
Now, when someone is on the verge of leaving, like I don't know how specific you want to get Highlander, but like how much do you guys like try to talk to them, try to prevent them from leaving? Like, do you guys get on your knees, or like what
Well,
happens?
they were already dead set on pretty much leaving because they were trying to. I don't. I'm gonna try very hard not to get like too big into it, but essentially, like they try to use like a different Discord and try to create like a separate group. And I told them that it wasn't a good idea because when you split off and make a separate group, it generally tends to fail. And if it's melee related, because we got to be able to monitor some of that, because that can get toxic and that can get ugly very quickly, very fast. So I told them that it wasn't a good idea, and they were already dead set on leaving. So there was nothing I could have said or done to change my mind, or change their minds, I should say. Sorry. So I mean, yeah, that was pretty much how it is. There was just nothing I could have done differently. It just happened.
I know Turtle, you've experienced similar things with Paprika and Chug. So do you want to speak on that at all?
I mean, yeah, it's just like it's just an overall, it's just a big blow and a big setback. And luckily, like people like Chu came back, and Chug's situation, like similar to how Spit was saying to Cool Guy's situation, like Chug left and then got good and came back, and like we got a benefit of holy shit, Chug's fucking good and he's motivated to make us good. We wouldn't be here fucking where we are now if it wasn't for Chug and his grind and shit. But similarly, like luckily fucking when it happens to established groups like 40, 70, 45E, like you can always bounce back. It just sucks because it's going to take time, but it's just the rebuilding process is important to make sure you put in place of what you want to see.
Now, is it case by case dependent on like how much effort you want to put into retaining them?
Yeah, I mean, if someone's dead set on dipping, like you can't do anything about it. Like if someone's on the fence, like I convinced people not to leave. I'm not going to specifically say who, but I've convinced people like, yeah, don't dip. Fucking, it's not what you think.
Adam.
No, totally out. Those words out.
Totally Adam. No, but fucking, like yeah, I've convinced people not to leave, and then they were like after the fact, like, damn, I'm glad I didn't leave. I'm like, yeah, it's just trying to. It's not like, oh my god, let me fucking get on my knees to not get you to leave, but it's really big about perspective of like from your point of view, giving people the options of like, this is what it looks like, this is what like you're thinking you're getting, just weigh the option, like, and if it's still like the option that you have to leave is better than staying, like fucking I can't do anything about that. But it's like it's a big thing of like, hey, look at the community here, look at the community there, like this is what we have here, and things can be worked on. That this is what's perceived over there, and this is like what you're being offered, kind of thing. It's mainly a perspective game of like, hey, this is what we got, this is what they got, and not like of stuff of just community.
Cool. So I do want to talk about like how do you like get people interested in melee, because a melee roster only functions if people are actually having fun and actually like want to go to the trainings and go to the competitive stuff and go to the friendlies and train in pickups and 10 pickups and stuff. So I'm actually dealing with this a little bit myself now in the NR39. Like our top six, I would say, are what you would classify as like solid players. But our bottom four, there's a drastic drop with our bottom half, like to the point where we're scraping the barrel of like getting applicants to join in our group fights, and they're side blocking and not knowing what to do. But we don't have any other choice, because if we don't have those applicants on the roster, then there's no group fight because we have less than 10 people, right? Um, so like what do you guys do to like sort of get people interested in group fighting and melee and just everything?
We do it in kind of like waves of just getting people, like internal tourneys help a lot, because then it really shows you like, hey, this guy's willing to fucking grind, and then you can specialize that person and be like, hey, fucking take one-on-one time with them, and then get them interested in doing regimental melee trainings, and then on top of that, getting them into doing like pickups. Like that's a big leap, is going from just doing everything internally to pickups, because that's just a stepping stone essentially to getting better, and not just having people in the group to rely on who might not always be there to melee kind of thing. Doing like we set up our own like melee tier chart within the group, and that motivated a lot of people for a little bit to fucking get on that grind. And then tournaments on top of that helped, like and doing different tournaments, like if it's melee specifically, then go ham with the melee tournaments. But if you overdo it, then people get disinterested, and only the guys who are really interested will keep doing it, and I guess that's what you're looking for. But if you want to grab someone and not like drill it into their fucking brain only melee, and then they get burnt out, that's an issue. So it's good to pace people and ease them into it rather than shove it down their throat and tell them to get good without fucking remorse, because then people get burnt out really hard on that.
I think for TRB, we've had issues, and I think we still do. I know when the last RGO came around, we were kind of in a slump where many of our 18 players were washed. Basically, they didn't play melee a lot. Probably they were probably multiple players in there were top, say, 10 EU at a time, but then because they just didn't have the motivation, they didn't have any incentive. When RGO came around and was like, oh, it's RGO, okay, and we did horribly. I think our first game of RGO against the QRR, we lost 15-2. And the last time we fought the QRR, before that, we beat them. So it is a problem, I think. And I think Greasy, who's in charge of the A team, does try and work out how to keep mainly the A team players and those on the B team as well, who are possibly coming up, interested in melee. I think the key for us, at least, especially for those who have meleeed for a long time, veterans, is you don't want to overdo it. One group fight every few weeks. We don't do trainings unless there's a scheduled fight coming up. And also just, if you're someone who goes on melee servers a lot, then fair enough, you do you. But we're not going to force people into practice. We're not going to force people into participating in group fights. For the lower levels of the regiment, I know companies individually do trainings. The KGL, who are like probably the bigger line company on the EU side, they do trainings every week, probably multiple trainings every week, and they always get good attendance in it. They probably don't have the best meleeers in the regiment, but the players are always happy to partake in melee trainings, and I think that's really good, really positive stuff to see. I think it's just kind of showing the lower ranks as well that melee can be fun. It's not frustrating. This frustrating thing where you run into someone who knows how to feint and block and you just die. It doesn't take that much to get somewhat competent. And I think once you get past that stage, you will start to get individuals who want to practice themselves, want to hop on melee servers and get better. And that's when you start seeing potential homegrown talent, people who you take under your wing, and and you help them get better.
Yeah, SpitFire, were you gonna say something?
Oh no, you can go. I was pretty much just reinforcing Oak's point.
Oh, okay. At least for the 4070 side of things, we're trying to get people like to be interested in melee. I mentioned this in the interview with you, Ostro, but I have to change like the cultural kind of, I don't know, just the culture in the 4070. Because within the 4070, like we have a platoon system, and then within those platoons, I mean, people are going to be looking up to, their respected NCOs and platoon commanders or just the platoon staff. And if I want people to get interested, I have to, tell, the platoon staff, like, hey, start bringing up, trainings and the melee and stuff. Because, I mean, when it comes to melee, I mean, you're not going to think of the 4070, honestly, except for like myself and Peep and maybe Warrior here and there. But I mean, that's it. There's only like a couple of people, and also back in the day it would be Hex, but Hex isn't around anymore, unfortunately. I'm trying to get him back, but we'll see. But yeah, I have to like just reinforce, like positive reinforcement, and encourage people to keep doing melee. And during events, if our performance during all charges, or if we're just in general charging a line and that we're not doing too good in the melee, then platoon staff or the NCOs will be like, well, we didn't do well. We didn't do, we could have done better. So I recommend you guys show up to the trainings. And for my standard trainings, which I have like an hour before the event, I do have like a melee, like a 30-minute melee section, and then I have 2 separate melee trainings, so that we can get better on the competitive stuff. But it's just I have to change the culture, and I got to change that. So it's just continued positive reinforcement into getting people interested in doing that, but obviously not overly do it so that people will just ignore it. So, and SpitFire's been kind of always talking about SpitFire helping out. Rick and Turtle, you need to come help us too.
Will do.
But yes, SpitFire's been freaking major key in helping us getting better. So on that, so
I do think that internal tournaments is kind of a way that the TRI has gotten people involved, and a useful way to see who's putting the time and practice in to improve. That's like kind of where guys like Triple M have come up, where they've become very top tier duelers, and then you just need to get them into group fighting so they can improve in that XVX situation. Like that Turtle pointed out, once you can kind of get them going to pickups, that's when that's kind of like they're at the table, and you can get them then into group fighting because they're willing to put that time outside the regiment and outside the event to better themselves in a competitive atmosphere. And that those trainings can also be done at the company level. I think for TR, it depends on the company, but our competitive trainings is non-existent at the moment. We just do a lot of group fights. It varies by week, but normally we can have at least, it's chilled down, but normally about 1 a week, maybe twice a week. But during RGL, and then it ramps up. To prepare for the finals match, we did a group fight versus the K-Ray on Saturday. We lost 15-14, so we did a training Sunday, practice Monday, training Tuesday, practice Wednesday, training Thursday,
Holy
practice
shit.
Friday, training Saturday twice, practice Saturday, then training Sunday, and then the actual match Sunday. So by that point, every person on the A team was being told show up to everything if you have the time, because that was the kind of the cream of the crop. But normally it's much more show up to what you want. If you're not going to show up, don't expect to start. But if you are going to continuously show up, or at least if you maintain your skill, then expect to start. I guess kind of rewarding people for putting the time in, but still giving the people that don't have the time to commit as much as other guys the chance to play.
It's been sort of interesting for me because for the longest time, like I've only paid attention to people like in the Melee Discord, and everyone in there is like into Melee. Like right then, they like Melee. They participate in the pickups and everything, the tournaments. So like I've never really interacted with people that are just like really new, I guess, and are kind of hesitant. But joining the NR39, like I'm looking at the Melee channel, and it was actually really surprising to me, like how many people are just deathly afraid to even attend pickups because they're just terrified of doing badly, and they don't really want to sort of leave their regiment and put their toe into like that sort of broader um, regiment, like coalition of, I guess, of people, is what we have in pickups, and they're just like so deathly afraid. So have you guys had like similar experiences with like new people just taking melee as just something that just to be afraid of, I guess?
It's definitely something that scares a lot of people, and it really shouldn't because it's a video game. But the whole jazz community can be unforgiving, not nearly to the extent of NW, but just like their first interaction with someone can really set the tone. And if it goes off poorly, whether it's in Wraiths or the Melee Discord, they may just say screw Melee and never touch it again. So I think a lot relies on the regiment to kind of almost be like the big brother and get them involved in it. Um, I'm pretty sure every person in this VC has messaged someone to attend the pickups and has trained someone in Melee. So they all have, and probably including you, Astro. So they all have like,
Oh, he's in this channel.
hello, Highlander. So like they all have the experience and like examples where they, even though they may be scared of Melee, if you tell them that it's gonna take time for you to improve and you shouldn't really be worried about getting your ass kicked in at the start, then they may feel more inclined to go to those pickups and improve. And I do think getting people involved in Melee is going to always be an issue. Just the more Melee oriented your regiment is, the easier it's going to be, and that takes a lot of time to build up.
With the 45V, do you guys have anyone that are just like have like a phobia, I guess, of melee and just like impossible to get them into it?
I don't think so. I think there's people who fucking hate it and just don't care to get good, but there's no one who's like, we host a couple of trainings, like one regimental training, one NWL training, specifically like just guys who choose to do that. But everything's optional by default. But guys who choose to do that for NWO especially is like a good amount of melee. And if people want to do that, they'll show up. There's never like a issue of like people being afraid. It's like people either don't want to put in the time sink because they have real lives, or fucking they just don't enjoy mailing simply because they don't, and you can't really change that too much. If someone doesn't enjoy doing something, you don't really want to force them to do something.
Well, and even I would say like the opposite is true. I've been in here for a year now, and since recently, and Turtle mentioned this early on in the interview, Chuga's done a lot for our melee scene. He really pushed hard for a lot of stuff, and a lot of the melee stuff we have in the 45E now is because of him.
Yeah,
and,
straight him.
And yeah, and there was kind of a spark, like where it was kind of like we had like the 45E had a melee culture for a couple weeks, like shit was going kind of crazy, and even like a lot more people were more active, and it's kind of died out a little bit as things do. They got hyped up, but there's still like we got people from Chu doing that, and now it's like there's people doing melee now that maybe wouldn't have before because it wasn't really pushed for, it wasn't really an idea. And so there's definitely, if anyone's scared to do melee, then we're not doing our jobs right, because whenever I'm going and popping off, or Turtle is, or whatever, we make it seem like a fun thing and try to make it inviting, and let people know that we're really willing to teach them and make them better if they want, and they don't have to go too far out of their comfort zone to do so.
Cool. So pickups have existed since like 2019. I think like ESR and XFL were like some of the first groups to like do pickups, and now there's like pickups for both XMG and Adam's pickups like every week now. So I guess this is more of a question towards Adam since you're the one hosting the pickups now. But Like, what do you think the state of pickups are at right now? Like, are you happy with them? Like, certainly attendance wise, they're better than they've ever been, right? But like, what do you sort of think about like the behavior aspect of it?
Well, I'm flattered to hear that the pickups attendance is better than ever because I actually didn't know that. I just assumed that it was probably the same numbers all the time, but that's really cool to hear. I don't know if that's because of me or just because Melee is just more popular now, but that's really awesome. Um, you got me excited now. I didn't fucking know that. What was the question? I'm,
He's flattered.
I'm like flattered. I'm like, what the fuck?
So like some of the people doing a little bit of trolling.
Oh, the state of pickups. Right.
Yeah,
Sorry. So I think for the most part it's good. I mean, it's kind of gone. It's almost been like kind of a bell curve, not as exponential, I guess, as a bell curve, but it's been kind of a little bit of a roller coaster. Like when I first started hosting pickups, it was good. Everyone kind of behaved. I think it was kind of like there's two ways it goes, right? Either I'm the new kid and everyone's trying to like get the best of me and be assholes, or they're like showing me some respect because like I'm actually hosting pickups, and that's the way it went. At first, it was really nice. Everyone's kind of came. They did normal pickup stuff, and it wasn't super trolly, and I had a good time. And then after people got a little bit more comfortable, and in some of the more recent pickups, there's not honestly not even the last two or three, but like I said, it's been kind of like a roller coaster. In the middle, it was kind of like people were getting a little bit too comfortable and like they were willing to troll, and then it has a ripple effect, and then a bunch of people want to troll, and then it's like I have to threaten to kick or ban people, which I don't want to do because I want everyone to have fun and have a good time, and know their limits. But for the most part, I would say it's getting better. I mean, I'm learning how to, because I mean, I'm an officer in the 45, or not an officer, I'm an NCO in the 45E at this point, so I have an okay amount. Like I helped you run the melee training, so I have an okay amount. Like I understand how to teach people. Even before I was in the 45E, I like teaching people stuff, so I understand that sort of aspect of being assertive. But for pickups, I'm learning how to do it without being that guy that everybody hates. Obviously, some situations you just have to put your foot down. If someone hates you, whatever, I don't give a fuck. If you're being a dipshit, I'm just gonna ban you. But for the most part, it's usually just like a lot of times it's someone who's a little bit younger, right? And they're not really doing it to spite me. It's just like some people just don't have as good attention spans, and then like I said, ripple effect shit happens. But the last few pickups have been really good. I mean, usually uh, there's two rounds and both rounds go fine, and there's just a minuscule amount of trolling, and usually it's kind of dependent on the captains. If I've been a little more careful for allowing certain people to be captains because some captains actually care and they don't want their teammates to be retarded and they want to win, and usually that kind of shows out through the whole team. But obviously, I'm still working through the kinks and trying to figure stuff out. But overall, pickups are really good, and I think they're gonna continue to get better.
and I think Highlander needs to start attending pickups. Haven't been seeing you, Highlander.
Oh man, why are you pointing me out?
I think everyone in this channel has been
Honestly,
attending pickups.
yeah, I probably should. Yeah, you have to remind me when those are happening.
I can give you the pickups role if you want. I'm assuming you're an Austro server.
I am, yes. So let me know when they are. I'll probably show up.
We'll get
I'll
Highlander.
I
actually
need
be
to get
hosting
my-
tomorrow night at 9:30 probably.
I need to get my guys to do it as well, because like it's really the only. I mean, it's not the only way, but it's just gonna be the main
It's a good
thing.
stepping stone.
That would be
Yes.
fucking crazy if you pinged your guys. I mean, luckily I upgraded my server to a 60 pop recently, so if you just brought your whole melee team, that would be fucking crazy and a disaster at the same time. But it would be fun. So feel free.
Hey, what
that'll
do
be
you
a
mean by
challenge.
disaster, huh?
Not okay. Not because of the 47E, but because the one time my server one pickups on Friday got server capped at 40 people. Like there was exactly 40 people there, and the first round was an absolute shit show.
It was tough.
It was man, I mean it was still fun. It was pickups. There was a lot of like old faces in there that I hadn't seen come to pickups or been to my pickups anyways. But yeah, I encourage you if you want to ping your boys and have them all come. I'll do my best to make it fun for everybody. So
Yeah, I definitely will be messaging the boys tomorrow.
Pog
Get their
champion.
asses on.
Yeah, I usually host. I try my best to host every Wednesday and Friday. If I miss Friday, then I'll make up for it on Saturday. But both days would be 9:30 p.m. Eastern time.
Cool. So we're on like the last few topics now, or the last couple ones actually. Um, so I'm a big advocate for the so-called assist tracker. I'm pretty sure I've talked to some of you about this before. So right now we have pretty much your kills and your deaths. Then I guess your points, but no one really looks
Mhm.
at points. Um, so I was thinking, like, if you block an attack and your teammate kills said person after you block their attack, you should get an assist for that, and that should count on the scoreboard, right? Or if you stab someone and they don't die and your teammate stabs them, you should get an assist for that, right? I think this would better, you would get a better idea. It wouldn't be perfect, but you would get a more accurate idea of who the actual support players are and who's just eating stabs to the face and not doing anything for your team, right? So, do you guys think Aegis should add a support tracker? I mean, not a support tracker, an assist tracker to the scoreboard.
That's already a
Why
thing.
or why not?
It's if you look in the leaderboard and you check your stats and stuff, you can see how many kills you have and how many assists you have, and assists are calculated on if you hit someone and then they died. That's already a thing. It's just not showed up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, for group fights, it's mainly just the scoreboard that people look at. So, like, do you guys think that should be added, or
Um,
what?
I don't see why it like wouldn't, because KD, like, kill death assist is already a thing in like every other game, but just in Holdfast it's KD and then score. It would just be another like thing, and it wouldn't be that much because it's, again, like I said, it's already, if it's already tracked, it wouldn't be impossible to implement. I don't think it's like
Most games have KDA, right? Kills, death, assist.
But do you block more in line to line, like, or are you blocking more in open melee? Like, if it's counting your blocks in open melee, which a lot of the time are 1v1s or 1vx's, you're not actually assisting anyone at that point. Like, I think, especially in NA, because open melee is so much more like sought after, that the majority of your points from blocking are not from line v line, where the so-called assists will be coming from when your teammates are swapping onto them. But most of these points are just come from open melee when you're 1v1ing the opposite man, or 2v1ing someone. It's not really an assist at that point. It's just you blocking for the sake of not dying.
Yeah, I think something more feasible would just be like what they already have in the game. If you hit someone and then they die to someone else, that's the assist. Like, I think it's too complicated to track if fucking if you're blocking and then teeing someone up, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's also something that would have to be looked at anyways. It's like, did that guy who blocked the attack, was he just blocked so perfectly that your teammate came, like really the most important part of that assist is the person that got the kill, right? Like, you can say you assisted them, but it's like, how useful were you really, or were you kind of just fodder? Or like, you, even if you're a good or a bad player, it's like you block and someone stabs that guy. It's like you don't really know if you were an assist or if you got lucky that your teammate saved your ass. Um, However, if it were to be tracked, obviously, uh, the blocking thing would be kind of like up in the air and kind of difficult, like Hooked was saying, because of how open melee works. But if it were to be implemented, I would imagine it would have to be something like, you blocked an attack. If the guy whose attack you blocked dies in the next half a second or 1 second or whatever, then you get an assist. But I don't think it's super necessary, because usually, like, stats like that would just be something that would be tracked like regiment to regiment. And I think the reg leaders and people that run their melee teams already are analytical enough, because they've been playing forever. And most regiments that are good at group fighting have some sort of top melee that would be able to tell you, is this guy, is he a support player, quote unquote, who's getting a lot of assists, or is he just bad? I don't think the stat tracker helps too much at this point in the game's melee evolution. Would be cool though.
Would be.
Probably not necessary.
I'm just a hater.
Yeah, I don't see like it wouldn't hurt at all having an assist tracker, right? Even just for damaging the guy. Like, so many times, I'm sure you've all like experienced this. Like it seems like you get like 5 hits in a round, and you just don't kill anyone, and you're negative KD, but you're like, I'm doing so much though, right?
Yeah, that
The
would be the
scoreboard
easiest
doesn't
one.
reflect it.
If you just yeah, like Turtle said, they already have a system in place where they track it. It's just not on the scoreboard. I'm sure it'd be pretty easy for them to code it into or implement it into the scoreboard tracker and just have it, reset, I guess, after every match.
Yeah, because if you're like 0-3, but you have like 10 assists, like someone can see that, right? And they're like, oh, okay, you are doing something.
You should probably have that guy investigated. If he's 0-3 and he has 10 assists, which means he got 10 hits in a row without getting a kill, that guy's probably like in some black magic sort of deal with the devil or some shit. You don't want him on your team.
Yes,
It's Noah. It's Noah, man.
Yeah.
Fucking EU
EU
one
one
shots.
shots.
EU one
Yes,
shots.
his theory of EU one shots could be proven.
Cool. I think we're at the end. So I guess we'll just talk a little bit about the future of group fighting. Do you guys see it like? Do you guys think there's going to be any major changes? Like even maybe doing group fights in other games, and other Black Powder games in like the coming years, or is that just completely unpredictable?
Unpredictable, I'd say. But I mean, group fighting has remained. But I mean, group fighting as like a game mode, I guess, has remained the same for a very long time now. It's similar to also NW. Obviously, like tactics and the quality of players are going to change, but I don't think there's going to be a competitive melee game mode as popular as just traditional group fighting, for a while at least.
Anyone have anything to say about the future of group fighting, either in Holdfast or potentially other games?
I'm glad it fucking is coming to like more prominence in the melee community. It's a lot more fun than doing just duels. It's a fun thing to do with friends, kind of. So I like it. It's cool. I hope it sticks around.
Yeah, I think in this current iteration of melee, more people are preferring group fighting over 1v1s, because 1v1s could kind of be stale. Group fighting's more interesting.
More
I would think.
explosive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to say anything? Okay, I think we'll end things here. It's getting very, very late. This has been the Group Fighting Podcast. Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
So
Thanks.
Hello.